All right, it is 7 o'clock. We will call this meeting to order. Bailey, can you get a roll call, please?
Yep, absolutely. Councilmember Bain? Here. Councilmember Husnick?
Here.
Councilmember Eigner?
Here.
Councilmember Freer?
Here.
And Mayor Winnick.
Here. I'd ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll look for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And now we have time for the open forum. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. Bailey's going to bring that up here. Ask everybody to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Thank you, Bailey. Tim Dalbeck.
Good evening. Tim Dalbeck. I chair the Airport Commission. And I know tonight you're going to be discussing for new appointments to that commission. I know as it currently stands, there are definitely some hardships with the people that are on the board right now. And that has really gotten in the way of having a successful and easy meetings, I guess. Every one of the meetings have been just a free-for-all by the time we get to the end of the meeting. So there definitely needs to be some changes. We need some people in there that will work for the airport instead of against it. When it comes to getting things done now, we need the support of everybody on that board. And we definitely are not getting that today. So I just leave you with that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Connie Greve.
Connie Grabovi.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Hi, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. So I wanted to take an opportunity to just talk about the downtown business area tonight because I'm a resident that lives in the condos downtown. And we have had that business, which I can't remember the name of it, but it was a bar business that was downtown, closed. And before that business closed, we had some pretty sketchy characters hanging out in that parking lot, and it affected our ability to feel safe in our parking lot. So we have another business that has come downtown that has brought some, what I would call sketchy characters in the area. And I am just concerned about the direction that the business district is taking. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to bring a citizen's view of what it's like to live downtown and have businesses come in that might be of a sort of nefarious nature, maybe. I don't really know what goes on at some of these businesses. But it would be so nice to have businesses down there that encourage family activities and encourage people to walk in the downtown area and bring a business to the downtown. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity tonight to say that and bring that to your attention, and just encourage you that as a citizen, if you need input or information from the citizens that live down there in reference to zoning or businesses, or there's a lot of us that would be real willing to come to a meeting and talk about the concerns that we have as businesses are being approved to go in the downtown area. And so I also wanted to say thank you for what you all do every day, because I don't think you hear that enough, and your job is tough. And there are citizens out there that support you and what you're doing and are willing to be there and talk about the problems that we see coming into the community, and are also willing to put action to the words that we bring up before you as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Sonia Kaiser.
Good evening. Just echoing the previous citizen,
as a resident in the downtown area, close to a business that is getting their, or up for renewing, from my understanding, their licensing, I would like to be on record as saying that I do not support this business at all. And I cannot remember the name, and I apologize, but it is a massage parlor, so to speak. I have 5 children. They thought about getting a gift card for a Christmas gift because mom needs a massage because, moms of 5 kids need help in that area. Thankfully, they did not go there. It's not a legitimate business, in my opinion, living next door to it and the activity that I see there, and I will go on record and whatever I can do to get the place shut down, I will do it. It's horrible. That's it.
Thank you. And Mike Kaiser.
Hi, I'm Mike Kaiser, Sonia's husband. We do live right next door to the massage parlor. I'm kind of frankly shocked that it showed up one day. No signs, no hours of operation. A couple red tassels and a red light flashing in the window, some curtains, and girls being dropped off, picked up. Only men going to this business. I've never seen a woman enter the building. It's disgusting to me that showed up next to my house. I've got 5 children, and I own another property that I'm trying to sell right now, which doesn't help to have a massage parlor next to your property. So whatever you can do to clean up the downtown area, you're doing a great job with some of the redevelopment, but that was a big miss, letting those guys get in there. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. You want to talk about the licensing procedure? That closes out today's open forum, so we're going to move on to our consent agenda. And I'd like to have everybody go through this kind of line by line, what they'd like to remove before we make the motion. I think that'll be a lot less confusing for everyone.
I'd like to remove item C from the consent agenda.
Tell them what it is, so they don't see it out there.
Oh, item C, the 2018 corporate license renewals.
Mayor, I'd like to remove item K, joint powers agreement with Washington County Mobile Field Force Unit per staff's request.
Okay.
And also item S, Headwaters 11th edition final plat approval extension. There's just an error in that one that I'd like to discuss.
All right. Anybody else on the council have items they want removed? Okay, Mike, or whoever would like to make that motion then. C, K, and S are the 3.
Mr. Mayor, I move the consent agenda items removing the ones that were previously brought forward.
So that would be item 6C,
6K,
and
6S.
6S. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That'll bring us to item 6C. Laura?
Mr. Mayor, some information has come to my attention and also has been brought to the attention of staff related to the massage business location of Fay and Yath Therapeutic Spa, as well as the massage therapist Fay Yun Hee. I would propose that we table those 2 licenses for future conversation. When we table, we do need to indicate next meeting, correct?
No, you don't have to indicate that, but I think in this case, we'd need some type of, I mean, we can't stop them from operating, correct? Or just by not renewing the license without a specific reason?
Mayor, members of the council. So I think that the thought was if we're going to table it to continue to a specific meeting, we need to state what meeting we're continuing that to. So that was the intent behind continuing to a specific meeting. With respect to the operation of the business without a license, to the extent that it's not currently, or that the license is non-renewed in or not active in the interim, it would be similar to what we're doing with some of the other licenses that lapsed at the end of the year. We would just take no action from a licensing standpoint between now and that next council meeting.
So I would propose we table until the next council meeting, which is, I believe, January 22nd. So proper notice can be provided to the license holder of a discussion. I think the expectation right now is it's on a consent agenda and they're not expecting a full discussion. I think that that notice should be provided.
All right.
And then I would move, do we need to vote on the table?
Yes, we do. We should vote on the table, but we can't have discussion after you have the second on the table.
It needs to be seconded and then voted.
Right.
Okay.
Correct. So there's no discussion after that point. So if there's anything else you want to add it now.
Well, I would just say the rest of consent agenda item 5C, I would move that we pass those items. And I don't know if you need that in two
That
separate
would be
sections.
done subsequent to
Perfect,
the
okay.
motion for tabling.
Clarification, 6C, not 5C.
I'm sorry, thank you, 6C.
So that's a motion?
I'll second the motion to table.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the 2018 corporate license renewals minus the 2 licenses that were just tabled.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That'll bring us to item 6.
No. 6K, yeah.
6K. And that was requested to be removed from staff.
Yeah, we will just request that be placed on a subsequent agenda.
All right,
So moved.
second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then item 6S.
Mr. Mayor, I noticed that the date on the letter is actually September 31st, which doesn't exist. So I think we just need to correct the date, and then I have no problem approving it, but the date on there is wrong.
Okay, so motion to approve it at September 30th.
Motion to approve it at the date adjusted by staff.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move to amend the actual agenda. Staff had asked that we remove a couple of items off the agenda, so I'm making a motion to amend the agenda, removing item A and item J from the regular agenda, 7A and 7J.
All right, we have a motion. Do you have a second on that?
I have just a process question. Didn't we just approve the agenda?
That's why I'm making the motion to reconsider the agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Going right through this. So we are on to 7B, Timber Ridge Apartments. Aaron, are you going to take us through that one? Or?
Yep, Mayor, members of council, you've seen this application before. It's a final PUD. Previously, you had approved the preliminary PUD request for this. Basically, it involves the construction of about 74 units of multifamily housing at the intersection of 19th and Everton. This is very consistent with the previously developed Arbor Ridge project at 97 and 8th. The Planning Commission is recommending approval of the proposed development. So the request this evening for your consideration is to approve the final PUD for Timber Ridge with the conditions noted in the staff report and the engineer's email.
All right, thank you, Aaron. I know Arbor Ridge went over real well. Look for any comments or a motion from the council.
Somebody have a page number for the Arbor Ridge in the packet?
Bailey, you just want to cut me in here?
60.
187.
187.
Thank you.
I can just pull it, are you looking for a copy of the site plan, or?
I was looking for the page that had staff recommendations. Our packets aren't bookmarked, so if you see us scrolling madly, forgive the scrolling over here.
Yeah, we'll get them bookmarked next
Thank
meeting,
you.
for sure.
It's appreciated in a 400-page packet.
So the 6 recommendations in the staff report are outlined here on your screens, item 1 through 6. And then there are some supplemental items contained in the December 21st, 17 email from the city engineer that are still outstanding, including the acceptance of the final wetland delineation and a couple of other fairly routine items.
Aaron, just a point of clarification from the memo, but in the staff memo, it says the applicant shall address and mitigate any concerns found by the city engineer's staff and report. So do we need anything additional considering the letter that you just addressed? Didn't seem like it to me.
Mayor, members of council, that's a kind of a normal staff condition that we include. So what we do is when Ryan and the Bolton and Mink team are doing the development review, they submit an entire letter which has a number of clauses that reference many things. And so I guess my recommendation was that we keep that in there. These are sort of some additional outstanding items since that initial review letter were completed, so I think both are important to have referenced.
So do you want to add that as a 7th recommendation? Is that how you want it?
Be 7 and 8, it looks like to me.
You could do the motion to adopt the Timber Ridge final PUD amendment with the 6 conditions noted in the staff report and the items referenced in the December 21st, 2017 email from the city engineer. That way you catch both of them.
So that's even outdated. So a lot of these have already been fulfilled. That's just right out of our engineering letter that we start from the beginning.
Yep.
So
Okay.
really we got one item and it's so minor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the PUD with the 6 recommendations from the staff, and also to include the finalization of the wetland delineation and the landscaping plan.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And 7C, sewer meter replacement. Dan?
Mayor, members of council, here to give a little bit of background on the sewer meter replacement that's being requested for 21118 Everton Avenue. A little background for you. Back in 2003, for a brief period, the city allowed residents who made a request for a water meter to be placed on metered sewer to have a meter placed on their property. Basically, these are residents that would have a well and a city sewer connection. So instead of being on the unmetered sewer connection, this meter allowed them to be on a metered sewer connection. During when the program was active, 21 residents came forward and requested a meter from the city. The program was ended in 2004, and at the time the program was ended, credits for the purchase of the meter were issued back to the property owners, so the price of the meter was refunded back to the property owners, and the property owners were told that they would be able to maintain the metered sewer rates until those meters failed, at which time they would be placed on the unmetered sewer rate. Of the original 21 meters that were installed back in 2003, 18 have failed. That's consistent with the life cycle that we're seeing in other water meters, so there's nothing out of the ordinary there. In the fall of 2017, Mr. Weavers, who's the property owner at Everton Avenue, the property in question here, his meter failed, which basically means it just stopped transmitting read data to the receiver that staff uses to grab meter reads. And as a result of that meter failure, as we've done with the rest of the residents on this program, he was placed on unmetered sewer rates, which would be consistent with the policy. Now, while on the meter rates, Mr. Weavers has consistently been below the 5,000 gallon minimum threshold for the metered sewer, meaning we have a minimum charge, 5,000 gallons. He's never risen above that, and you can see that in the billing documentation that's included in your packet. Just to give you a little bit of a comparison for metered versus unmetered rates, in the fall of last year, I actually went back and looked at all of 2015's utility billing data as part of another project I was working on to see what the impact of processing fees would be on if we switch to a different utility billing processor, what the impact of the fees would be on overall revenues. But part of that analysis, actually, I looked at what an average metered rate was and compared an average metered sewer rate to the average, what we're currently charging for an unmetered rate. And when I looked at it in total throughout the entire city, there's about a 4% difference between a metered rate and an unmetered rate. And actually, the metered rates are a little bit higher than the unmetered rates when you look at the average. So the average user who's on a metered rate pays a little bit more than the unmetered rate, but it's a 4% difference, so they're really close together. However, Mr. Weaver, since he uses water conservatively, he is well below that threshold, so he'd be an outlier in the data set. So his use for the past 13 years has been below what the average is for the city. When you look at what the unmetered rate base is versus the metered rate, you're looking at a difference of about a 150, 168 annually. And since Mr. Weaver's usage has been so low, he is requesting to have a meter replaced on his property so he can continue on being charged that metered rate. And at this time, the cost of a meter replacement is $292.01. Basically, there's a couple of options that I sketched out here in the back of the memo for consideration. The first option is to not allow a meter replacement to take place. Again, this would be consistent with how we've handled the rest of the property owners who are on this program. The second would be to allow Mr. Weaver to purchase a replacement meter and return his rate to the metered, or his account to the metered rates. If this option is chosen, he has also requested that the fourth quarter bill from 2017 be switched back from the metered or unmetered back to the metered rates, and then since he'd be continuing forward on metered rates. But I also just want to note that if the second option is chosen, that does set a precedent for the remaining, there would be 17 people who are part of that original 21 to have theirs meters replaced at that time. So I wanted you to be clear that there is potential precedents being set by just for those who are on this original program. I still think there's enough difference between a new homeowner coming in, since we haven't done this program for the past 15 years now. We have enough time frame here, but these ones could potentially be grandfathered in on that original, ASK program from 2003. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
What was the
Oh, go ahead.
what was Mr. Weimer's told at the time that we discontinued the program? What was the plan that was communicated?
I don't know exactly what he was told. I know it was that one part of this was kind of a trial program. I believe the implementation was problematic from a billing perspective with these different reads being out. I don't know all of the details for why the program was ended. I do know there is a credit on his account from 2004 when basically they said, we're not going to move forward by allowing these residents to be placed on a well. They have to be on city water and sewer to get the metered rate. But I don't know all of the information is exactly where that originated from or what he was told.
Then you kind of answered my other question, but I think you don't know. I'll ask to clarify. Why was the program discontinued?
I believe it had to do with from what I was told from the research I did, and some of this is hearsay. I looked through the records and I couldn't find resolutions that showed, kind of spelled it all out. But I think it was something where there was some pushback on. At this time, we were setting up meters for separate accounts for landscaping, and there was some pushback on that. So at that time, they were like, okay, we're just going to do metered results or metered sewer for people who have both city water. Basically, is what we're doing. So that was the kind of where it ended. I don't know what all the discussions were that actually led up to that part of it.
Thank you.
So Dan, we're talking about a total of 20 potential.
Correct.
But at this point, we're dealing with one, so we're not dealing with hundreds or possibly thousands across the city. We're dealing with max of 20.
Max of 21, correct.
What about the rest of the city that has water and sewer? Is there a quarterly minimum charge, or is it for usage?
Yeah, for the sewer, if you're on a metered account, the minimum charge is at 5,000 gallons. Is basically you're charged at 5,000 gallons, and if your usage goes above that, you get charged at, I don't remember what the increments are off the top of my head, but you get charged an incremental rate for usage above that 5,000 gallons for sewer. And then, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but water is billed on a gallon usage, correct?
Correct, yeah.
That's at 10, I believe, yeah.
Okay.
So these are for people who have a well but don't, so they're not on city water, but they have a sewer connection. So there's a handful across the city that have that connection.
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Mayor was just trying to get a feel for that number. We're still paying a minimum no matter what.
Right. And,
Right.
And if you look at his account, I mean, his usage is low. It's consistently low. It's never, so the metered rate for him, when I talked to him on the phone, I explained to him, I said, if you look at it from a data set perspective, he's an outlier in that where he's way down here versus, you look at it from an average, our average for the unmetered rate is within range, for what we're charging people who are unmetered, but his usage is, incredibly low, which is, him and I, we discussed that, he's conservative with what his water usage is, and henceforth, he's been below that threshold every time.
I guess it just seems a little counterintuitive, in this day and age when we're really pushing water conservation and everything else to actually penalize somebody who isn't using much water. I don't know what the rest of the council feels like. I mean, it is a unique situation, and I think we have to handle it as one. I mean, I don't worry about setting a precedent on one of 20, but go ahead, Ed.
Dan, is that, when you say the 5,000 minimum users, is that for an average family of 4, or how is that number arrived
That's just the base.
at?
If you're on a metered sewer rate, you basically, if you use 1 gallon or 4,550, you pay the same rate, but once you get over 5,000 gallons.
No, I understand that part. What I'm asking is, how was the 5,000 number determined? Is that average usage throughout the Forest Lake, or?
I didn't research how that minimum, do you know how that minimum was determined, Dave?
I think it's per dwelling.
I don't know. I just know that's our minimum rate that we have set, so if you're on an account, you just pay that 5,000 gallon minimum. I know for some who have like a seasonal account to keep their sewer connection year round, they pay that minimum throughout the entire year, and that's just the way the policies are implemented here.
Yeah, it's just originally set at tiers, you just 0 to 5,000, 5,000, 10,000. I mean, at some point it was arbitrarily chosen that these are our rate, thresholds.
And if I could just clarify too, when I talked to Mr. Weavers here, he had no issue paying, he knew that he views lower than that. That wasn't his issue. He just wanted to be not penalized for being conservative. That's kind of why he brought it forward to me.
Go ahead, Mike.
So, first of all, full disclosure, I've known Mr. Weavers since probably 5th grade or something like that, so I always like to make sure people know that. Who would pay for the meter replacement? I'm assuming he would, not the city, correct?
At this point, just based on the fact that he paid for the meter originally, and then there was a credit back on the account when it was ended in 2004, I would recommend treating him like you would any other connection and make them pay for the meter at this point, since you could technically look at it as he's getting a new meter, first-time meter in there, since the one that he paid for back in 2003 was credited back.
Right. And Bridget, just a point of clarification, would we be setting a precedent if we had people who could consistently prove that they were well under, so we could do this based on him being under for the last 5 years, for example. As long as they were under for 5 years, I don't think that would necessarily set a precedent going forward if we use that as a criteria. Am I correct?
Mayor, members of the council, I think that this is sort of a unique situation that you have going on here. Now, certainly if there are other people, it does sound like, generally speaking, based on usage rates, it is only beneficial to Mr. Weavers, and most of the other consumers probably wouldn't be seeking to put their meter back in. But each case can certainly be handled on a case-by-case basis. No, bearing in mind, however, that if someone comes in and makes the case for it, you did go ahead and allow it in this case.
I don't know, Dave, if from an operational perspective, if one of the drivers of this is, these are 20 distinct sites in the areas that are currently not served with water. They could be in a number of different areas, and currently with our meter reading technology, when we do, and granted it's just 4 times a year, but we're driving out to each of these locations, and so to the extent that they're, the density isn't there on the reads, there's a little bit of an extraordinary cost. I have no idea where this particular meter is, if it's close to an area that has a lot of water connections or not, but I imagine, that's one of the driving factors in wanting to amortize this out over time.
I think the risk you run going the opposite way is that if you allow this person to put the meter back in, it might spur more people wanting to put it in. I mean, you have to figure second and third lake, there's no water service, it's all well and sewer. You know, if people start going, next thing you know, we're down to 20, we might go up to 300. You know, so we're to the point where this policy has almost eliminated the meter on the well. You know, it'd be a shame to go back the other way and have.
But now all the new meters have the radio technology in them, right?
They do, but as of right now, we have to, you know, depending where you are, you still have to get within, you know, a block or so of that house.
Right now, but I mean, I think council did want to look at mounting a receiver.
If you did have one on Third Lake, you would never pick it up. I mean, you wouldn't put a $75,000 tower out to pick up one antenna, you know, out on Third Lake. That's, you know, they reach maybe about a mile radius. So if you start getting the outliers, you'd still have to physically drive out there to read it.
Go ahead, Ed.
Is there any possibility, because this fella has demonstrated his usage has been below the 5,000, that we could reduce, instead of going through all this meter stuff, could we charge him something less than that, make his 4,000 or?
I'd recommend doing a full meter replacement just because you don't want to start setting specialty tier rates in, you know, we have metered versus unmetered right now, and you don't want to start getting into all these sub rates. I mean, granted, his usage is low, and you know, I mean, he does a phenomenal job of being conservative with his water usage, and he is an outlier, you know, I mean, in terms of that, in terms of the data set. But, you know, I'd recommend doing the meter replacement just to kind of continue on that program so we're not having to go through on a quarterly basis going, oh yeah, he's in this tier over here, a subrate over here. It's just metered on meter, and then whatever the usage is off the reads. Because it could very well be too, I had spoken to him before, I said if you go to an unmetered rate, you could conceivably leave your water on 24 hours a day and still pay the same rate. And he goes, well, I'll never do that. I said, no, I'm not saying you would, but I'm just saying unmetered, you pay the same charge. So, you know, but on a metered rate, you know, we have to have that proof that he's actually using less than required.
But in his case, we're metering the sewer discharge, right? Is that?
Still metering the water usage, and that's figuring out what a percentage of that is figured for sewer.
So they're running the meter off the well, and then that's how you charge the sewer bill is if they use 3,000 gallons of water, then they charge you 3,000 gallons of sewer.
But at the same time, everybody else is paying a minimum.
Yeah, I mean,
It doesn't matter.
Definitely
Everybody's paying a
the exception
minimum.
and
I pay a
not the rule.
minimum.
Yep.
So it doesn't, this conversation doesn't make a lot of sense to
no,
me.
and there's people that aren't here, I mean, because they have seasonal, and they're paying minimums, they're not using any water. I mean.
And, I mean, you have to take into account too, you know, say this gentleman decides to sell his house next year. Okay, now a family of four moves in there and they start using different amounts of water, you know, then they might not want the meter in there. They might want it unmetered.
Oh,
Well, then now
yes,
you're going in there
absolutely.
and pulling the meter out. So, I mean, it's, you know, you could do this case by case on every single house if it starts coming up, and I don't know if you really want to open that can of worms and every council meeting having a discussion about another homeowner.
And when the program was started, it did have a sunset on it, so.
When it was originally started, there was no sunset, there was a policy.
Well, I mean, as meters wore out, they weren't going to be replaced.
When it was ended, correct. When it was ended, they basically said if you had, at that point, it was if you had a current meter installed, you had to use that meter until.
So now he falls in that category of where his meter.
Yep, and that's
died.
what started this conversation. He requested to be pushed back on metered rates, and we followed suit and said, well, no, you're on this program that was back in 2003, 2004. It's now ended, and the policy's been to move everybody to unmetered sewer rates, and he asked to be, pushed back on a meter, which is outside of our normal scope for this, which is why it was brought forward.
Can we grant his request and limit the number of people that would potentially fall into that same group of individuals or the same circumstances to the group of the original 20? Or if we grant the request, are we opening it up to any, is there a proper argument that can be made that given the participation of a program that has now been grandfathered, it's kind of an extension of that grandfather? I just want to be clear on, that.
We're dealing with 20, we're not
If it's
dealing with
just
2,000.
20, right. If it's
We're not
20, it's
dealing
a
with the
simple,
potential
easy
of
answer, right.
anymore, because
Right.
anybody who comes in is gonna have water and sewer and a meter.
Right.
So I agree. I think we're dealing with these 20 and at maximum, and they're probably gonna fall off as development kind of encroaches upon them, and they do get water and sewer, so.
And just to clarify too, out of the other 18 that have, or the other 17 that have had their meter failure, we have not had a request by any of them for a replacement meter. Mr. Beavers is the only one who's made the request for a replacement meter out of the original 21.
And that's why I pointed out if there's a 5-year demonstration in advance of being below, then I can get behind it. Otherwise, I agree, we should be charging them, the same rate. But I think Dave makes a good argument that we don't necessarily need to be driving all the way over there to get it either, so.
To clarify, Dan, there's 20 of them left, or there was 20 total, now there's 4 left?
20 total from what I was given was there's 21 total, and then there's 3 left now. Mr. Weaver was doing 4 last year. So there's 3 left that are still active meters, but given the lifespan of the meters, I would anticipate those failing within this year or next year, just given how they operate.
Do you know if the 3 that are left are in the same scenario where they're way below minimum?
I didn't look into what the original 3 were. I focused primarily on this account before me. I could go back and find that out, but.
I mean, we've narrowed it down to basically 4, so I mean, I'd like to hear a motion unless.
Yeah. I'd make a motion that we approve his request. He has shown exceptional water conservation. We have a max exposure of 4, and if everybody were to, reappear, maximum of 20. Administratively, it is just a limited number of individual meters that would need to be read. I think it's administratively not a challenge. I would make a motion that we approve the request.
All right. Do we have a second on that?
Second for purposes of discussion.
All right. We've got a motion and a second, so any discussion? Go ahead, Mike.
So I am worried about precedent, and I do think that if we don't have some type of demonstration period, that 20 could turn, all 4 of them could come in and just do that, or you could expand as housing grows in Forest Lake. You could expand that. Now, chances of that happening aren't as good, obviously, but we could be expanding that without having some type of demonstration period. So I wouldn't support the motion as is presented, but I would if there's a demonstration period that has to be shown of being below that metered rate. Excuse me, unmetered rate.
I'm open to amending my motion to a demonstration period.
I would propose that demonstration period be 3 years.
I'm okay with that.
Then I'll keep my second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 7D. Bailey, can you take us through this, please?
Yeah. Mayor, members of the council, on December 19th, the Forest Lake Police Department conducted alcohol compliance checks. And currently, alcohol licenses are up for renewal and can be administratively approved, with the exception of those having a failed compliance check or a violation in the past 12 months. The list in the packet shows those that have had 1 violation in the past 12 months. Research was done between 2014 and 2017 to show that these businesses only had 1 violation in the past 24 months. Therefore, we are recommending approval for these licenses, for these alcohol licenses.
All right, Mike.
Mr. Mayor, before we actually look at this, Chief, this is a very high number this time around, and I'm wondering, you've explained it in the past. Could you just explain for people how, how you guys go about doing the compliance checks?
Yeah, according to state statute, we're mandated to have 1 annual compliance check. In years past, the mayor and city council appreciated the fact that we actually conduct 2 compliance checks during the year. What we do is we utilize 1 adult who is under the age of 21, usually 18, 19, or 20 years old, to assist us with the alcohol compliance checks. And then we utilize one minor that's either 16 or 17 years old for tobacco compliance checks. They assist 2 police officers who are with them, and they go into the businesses and attempt to purchase alcohol and or tobacco. In the past few years, we've have been given a grant through Washington County where it's an educational compliance check, and it's more or less informing the businesses of the check, whether they passed or failed, and to educate them on ways that they can learn to teach their clerks. They can go through some trainings with Washington County that's held here at the Government Center, at the Washington County Government Center. So, what we try to do is educate, and unfortunately, this time around, we just had quite a few failures. In years past, we might have had none. Other times, there might have been 1 or 2 failures. But yeah, as of recent memory, going back in my 17 years here, I've never seen this high of a failure.
I think that's my concern, is that, this is my 7th year, and I think I remember 2, maybe 3 at the most total. And it just seems like, and I'm not saying that you guys did anything different or anything like that, but it just seems like something happened here, whether it's education, whether it's something that, so I'm just trying to figure out, do you have any idea what changed? I mean.
No, I actually asked the 2 officers myself because I was quite concerned. And I accidentally just ran into them when I was Christmas shopping, and I saw them when they're out there. And that's when they told me, they said, it's not going real well this time around. And when I followed up with them the next day, that's when they told me that there were, 7 of the tobacco retailers failed, and then 6 alcohol retailers failed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chief, was the same individual that used in all locations?
I am not sure on that. From what I understand, we had a 17-year-old that bought at all the tobacco because
the same person.
She was she was underage, under 18. And I believe she might have been used at 1 or 2 of even the alcohol retailers.
So is this a person, obviously, if she's doing tobacco and that's 18, and you're using the same person for something that's 21, I would assume it's somebody that looks 21?
No, we don't go by, do they look older?
That's not taken into consideration?
No, we don't. We actually reach out to other organizations, agencies that have like Explorer programs, police Explorer programs, things like that. And we talk to who's ever in charge of it, whether it be an officer, a deputy, a sergeant. And we ask them if they have any Explorers who are interested in doing compliance checks or former Explorers. And we get in touch with them. We don't even see them until they actually come here and assist us. In years past, we have used other Explorers that might have, graduated from our program in years past. But I really try to get away from using anyone, who's real local.
It just seems that the preponderance being so high that something's different, that.
Yeah,
I was concerned that are we going in with somebody that looks far older than what we're checking for?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's you go to some retailers, where it might be in the metro, and they card everybody. I've been to places where they sell alcohol, and there'll be somebody
I know
that's 70, 80 years old, and they get carded.
In fact, I was in the St. Louis airport and went into the bar there, and they had buttons saying we card everybody, and they asked for my ID, and I said, what do you want, looking for a senior citizens discount or what? I mean, but there was absolutely, they're carding everybody in the place.
Well, I'm 49 years old, and it doesn't bother me in the least bit.
I think that's great policy.
One of the concerning things I found when I was looking through the reports is on the tobacco side, I think of the 4 compliance violations, all 4 times an ID was asked for and presented, but just wasn't looked at or wasn't caught that the date was not So it's not a matter of in those situations, it wasn't a matter of just education of ask for an ID. It was the follow through of actually checking the dates and doing the math. And that's a tough one, right? Person got 3/4 of the way there or 90% of the way there and just didn't take the extra step that would have just prevented a really tough situation. And minors know that stuff of, yeah, they'll ask you an ID, but they never look at it. And it's tough. It's disappointing.
And so the clerk that actually sells to them gets a fine as well? Or a
Yes.
ticket?
And what is
Then
that
the
penalty?
business is,
What is the individual penalty?
it's actually a misdemeanor.
Okay.
That's handled completely separate than
Yes.
what we're doing now, so.
Rick, how many repeats do we have at this compliance check? I know that last year there was a couple that failed.
Yes, was it?
These were all single violations in the past 24 months, so there haven't been any repeats in the past 2 years for any of these businesses.
Is there anybody in the crowd that wants to, I'm assuming most of you are here for this, so we typically handle that through the open forum, but if there's people that want to speak, I guess I'd like to have you come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Yeah, and just for reference, right now, we're talking specifically about the alcohol renewals.
Yes, this is specifically for the alcohol.
Okay, well, I'll just wait till the next one then.
All right. Was there anybody else? All right, bring it back to the council. They're all single violations. I mean, are all these retailers attending the Washington County training, or have they attended it in the past?
We don't, I'm not sure of how many that have. It kind of varies from year to year, whether, some do attend and, others don't. But I'm unsure with this round in 2017, how many of the retailers actually attended the educational.
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't believe we need to do anything special with American Legion license with the 2 AM certification, do we? There's no special, nothing.
No, that was just something additional to the alcohol in general. They're just looking for renewal of that.
Just making sure, that's all.
Okay. Go ahead, Ed.
Being that all of these are like one violation and within a 24-month period, what would be the normal course of reaction? Or, I guess, what are we being asked to do?
To make a motion to approve the 2018 alcohol licensing.
So just to clarify that, there was a code change that allowed these to be done administratively. In the past, they all became before council. So if you don't have, there's no violations administratively, we can renew. If there's a violation, they need to come for council for consideration. Historically, in the past, if there has been a single violation, that is not, that does not a reason for, we've never denied a license on one single application or one single violation. Multiples, we've had so few multiples that it's never, hasn't come up a lot, but for single application violations, we never denied a license for alcohol.
One other question, are the fines automatic on something like that?
Correct, yep.
And how much of a fine are we talking about?
Do you want to find
$250, or I'm sorry, that's for tobacco. For alcohol, it's $500 for the first offense.
For the business.
Correct.
And the individual, as the chief said, gets a ticket.
Yeah, and that's not negotiable, that amount, I would assume, right?
No.
Okay.
So, I guess for purposes of moving the discussion forward, I am concerned that we have potentially a problem. And I don't know if this is a problem or if this is a fluke in the process of something that happened this particular round of compliance checks. I would be open to, in a future council conversation or workshop, talking about perhaps more, doing an extra round of compliance checks in 2018 or something to just kind of help to determine, do we really have a challenge? I think that's something we should talk about in a workshop. I am not prepared to remove licenses from six businesses tonight, but I think we do have a problem that we do need to talk about in a future workshop, whether that's in education, if it's additional educational checks, we need to do something. But I would make a motion that based on just one failure in a 24-month period, that we do approve these 6.
And if you don't mind me interjecting here, our officer who's in charge of this is also, if she hasn't already done it, is going around and speaking with every single one of the businesses. That was her plan as of last week. She explained that to me. And also getting some dates through Washington County to assist these businesses to educate their clerks as well.
I appreciate that.
So we do have a motion.
We do have a motion. I'll second it then.
All right, any further discussion?
The only question I had is whether, I know we can't force these people to attend the educational session, but we can strongly recommend that the businesses do or the employees do, or both.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we could consider in a future ordinance change some mandatory education requirement but that would obviously be on a prospective future basis. Bridget, can you speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Yes, you could certainly include as a licensing requirement attendance or completion of training by the business owner or their employees. So that can be revisited and brought forth to the council for consideration at a later date.
All right. And Sam, you have a question?
No, I was just, I agree with that, that we should renew the license based on the fines that are being presented, and the fines are mandatory, the way it sounded to me, and they're not negotiable, so I think we should allow this license to proceed.
Sure. I had a couple questions, Chief. First is, compliance check. Is it just one person, one time, or, would there be, 2 or 3 people going into one of these establishments at the same time? How does?
It's just the individual going up to attempt to purchase either the alcohol or the tobacco. Mm-hmm. And then if the point of sale does happen, they walk out, meet with the officer, give them the product and the change that they get back. Okay. And then the officer goes in and speaks with the clerk or the employee.
And second part of this, have you received or the department received complaints from the public on underage selling, anything like that?
We have seen a sharp increase of minors who have been in the possession of e-cigs and cigarettes, which is quite a bit higher than we've ever seen. I mean, e-cigs haven't been around all that long from what I understand either, but we have received quite a few complaints from not only teachers with the school resource officers and what they're finding, on the kids, but also some parents that have called and just complained.
All right, thank you.
One other question I just thought of, if you don't mind. These compliance checks, do they ever go along with adults buying for youth? Have you ever had that situation where people who are of age buying this product and then bringing it out and giving it to the youth? Somebody's underage?
I'm sure it happens, but I'm trying to think how we would go about that, to try to enforce that anyway.
Go ahead.
The other question I have, when you do these compliance checks, what time frame amongst all the business, all done within a week or?
Usually it's, sometimes we do the alcohol compliance checks separate from the tobacco. In this case, they're both done at the same time. And it's usually within sometimes it could take 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes it could take as long as 4 or 5 hours.
But it's all done on the same day?
Yeah.
One more question from me, and I don't know if you can answer it or not, but the actual individual that gets the ticket for selling this product, how many of them are actually aware of the significant fine that they face or the charges that they face for doing that? I mean, is that also something that we need to educate on the people that are actually selling that product?
Yeah, we could. I feel that's up to the business owner, educating their employees and the seriousness of that. But definitely, we'd be willing to assist any way we can as well.
You know, I'm just wondering if there's a, you know, maybe something from the state or something, you know, some type of poster or something they can put up, you know, next to the time clock or whatever that they punch in that, you know, if you sell to underage, you're gonna get a $500 fine or this or that. I mean, you know, when some other drug things were real prevalent, I know we received posters and put up about, you know, certain chemicals or different things that we'd be selling that, you know, don't sell these to
Sure.
you know, people like that, so.
Chief, for those that pass, are they notified too that they had been checked?
Yeah, from what I understand, they're sent a letter explaining to them that, you know, congratulations, you passed, you know, nice job. And
Because
so
I
on and
do
so
know
forth.
some businesses, especially involving alcohol, that they actually have a reward to the server of a, you know, if you pass a compliance check, they get like a $100 bonus for passing.
Oh.
So they take it seriously.
Sure, yep.
It's my understanding that some of the training that's provided is orientated not only to the business owner, but they can run all their individual clerks through it. At least at one point in time, that was the Washington County training that was available, you know, throughout the county.
Yep.
Is there a charge for that?
I don't believe so.
No.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, do we want to repeat? The motion is to approve the licenses
Correct.
and as presented, right? No
As presented.
stipulations to that, so. All
Thank
those
you for
in-
doing that.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And 7E, tobacco compliance check violations.
Mayor, members of the council, in addition to the alcohol compliance checks, the Forest Lake Police Department also did 2 rounds of tobacco compliance checks, both on November 19th and December 19th. Again, per city code, those that did not, those that had a violation in the past 12 months are up for renewal approval by city council. We'll have 3 parts to this memo. It starts on page 230. First, we sent a letter, stated there will be a public hearing for those that have had one violation in the past 12 months to get their license renewed, and I believe there might be people here to speak on that.
All right, thank you. So I will open it up to the public now, if there are people that would like to speak to this.
Your Honor, just for sake of ease of the discussion here, I think on the screens you have 3 sections of the discussion. I think initially, if you could confine your discussion to the licenses that have a single compliance check that are recommended for approval, and I think there's 6 or so of those. That might be the first to be considered. And then if you want to move on to the discussion on the Cloud X vape, and then the last one, the liquid vape, I think if you kind of compartmentalize those, it might be more helpful.
All right, which facility did you want to speak on, or just in general?
Well, no, I am the owner of e-cig store, and we did fail our tobacco license. So I'm the one in 2009 West Broadway, which is the Fog e-cig.
He has a single violation.
Single violation, yes. And I do agree, it's in my mind, it doesn't need to happen. It's pretty unacceptable, to be honest with you. I actually set a very high standard for my guys, and the guy who actually did receive the violation, he hasn't worked there since. I have 2 locations, and we did pass at my my other location that they had not the real where you actually get the fine, the other informational one, and we did pass that. And my employee, it's actually a real bummer because he's really, really good about it. And he told me that he did ID him, or the young lady that came in, and he said he checked the date, or I'm sorry, the month and the year, and then just wasn't doing the math. And we actually have a thing that says the date sitting there, you know, so to me it was really inexcusable. So he hasn't actually worked there since. I didn't fire him, but he hasn't worked there since. But what I did to remedy this, and I actually think that a lot of people should do and it's good for both tobacco and alcohol, is I went out and spent $750 on buying this thing, and it sits right by the register, and they can look at the person, make sure it's the person, scan it, takes 2 seconds, and it'll pop up and give you the age and tells you exactly if they can buy it, what the age is or not. So why I did this is because to me it's inexcusable. It's so simple to do these things, to keep it out of youth, their hands and everything. So, and for me as a business owner, because now I'm here and standing in front of you guys, and we got a fine. He's got a fine. He actually has to go to court. It's mandatory, even though he gets the fine. So I don't think, when I looked at his court thing, that he has to go. It's mandatory to even get the fine to pay it. So he knows, it's pretty serious. So I think that's, just something this simple. Maybe it becomes like a mandatory thing. I'm not trying to be like the bearer of bad news to every other tobacco shop, but it's simple to me. So.
Go ahead.
Do you just sell the e-cig, right? You don't.
Correct.
You don't sell tobacco.
Correct. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Greg Gerlach. I'm the district manager for the Holiday Station stores in town. I have been for the last 17 years here. So, as a company, we take this very seriously. We have an outside firm that does 2 compliance checks every month at all of our stores, all 522 across the country. We reward our employees when they pass. They get a $25 gift card. For government stings, it's $50. And so going back to the education part of it, we try to drill it into them. When you're selling to this person, you don't know if they're of age or not. Do you want a $50 gift card, or do you want a criminal violation? So in the back of their mind, hopefully they're thinking of that. In this case, this person had already given their 2 weeks notice, and so I think he was a little checked out of his position already. We do have a policy where we terminate for any violations. So, but like I say, we do take it seriously. We with this outside firm, they're 25 years of age or under. So most of them are 23, 24, 25, somewhere in there. And company-wide, we've got about a 96% pass rate on those. So, and I think it's been several years since we failed the city sting here. So,
all right. Thank you very much.
You.
Anybody else from the audience? Let me bring it back to the council for discussion and a motion.
I'll just point out again, this is a very, very high number, and Chief, in the past it hasn't been this high. So I agree with what Councilmember Bain said. We've got to do something else. This is one of those things that I'm about as unforgiving as you can possibly be on these, especially for tobacco. I'm going to have a hard time voting for any of these to move forward, but considering the sheer number, I think that there's got to be something else that the city does after this one. So.
I think it's pretty obvious that at least the 2 fellows that just spoke, they're doing that part to change it, to make things better. And so I'd make a motion that we go ahead and renew these licenses again with the idea that there's a standard fine that goes with it and that kind of thing. And I'm looking forward to the fact that it's not going to happen that often again.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ed. Any further discussion?
I would encourage us to workshop this one as well, and just talking about, future, what the plan is for both compliance checks and education, and consider what potential penalties are. I think there's some technologies that were introduced tonight that are out there that we could potentially mandate in certain circumstances, and I think there's some options we could consider in the future.
I think it'll be a short number of years before that technology is mandatory by
state law,
the companies themselves and by the state. But question for the chief that I forgot to ask before is, when the first violation letter is sent out, is there anything in there about the consequences of the second violation as well? I mean, obviously, they should know, but I think that needs to be reinforced when
There is.
the first violation goes out.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I understand what you're saying. And
If you could check into that, if not, I think we need to revise that so that they are, fully aware at that point what the next violation includes anyhow.
yeah, I'm not sure on the city side if that's included or not. I'm not sure.
I'm just looking at right now a copy of the letter. I'm trying to find one.
I do include a copy of the city code explaining what the penalties are.
Oh, thank you, Bailey. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I do have one question, and it's just to educate myself, seeing as I know nothing about e-cigs. Why do they come under the tobacco when they're not a tobacco?
It's still nicotine.
Is it because of nicotine in there?
Yes.
Answers my question. Thank you.
All right. Okay, hearing no more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. So that motion is to approve those licenses.
And those were the ones with just a single violation in the past 24 months.
Correct, single violation in the last 24 months. So moving on to number 2, the CloudX vape.
Mayor, members of the council, CloudX Vape is possibly before council tonight for a hearing concerning the renewal of its tobacco license application. CloudX Vape is the tobacco license holder for the premises located at 843 West Broadway Avenue in Forest Lake. Diane Hughes is the applicant and owner of CloudX Vape. On November 26th, the CloudX Vape has submitted an application for renewal of its existing tobacco license. Because CloudX Vape failed 2 compliance checks in November and December of 2017, the tobacco license application is before the council for consideration tonight. CloudX Vape was served with a notice of this hearing by certified mail on December 21st, 2017. The alleged tobacco license violations occurred on November 19, 2017 and December 19, 2017. In both cases, a tobacco compliance check was conducted by the Forest Lake Police Department with assistance of an underage buyer who entered the licensed premises and was sold the e-juice, which contains nicotine and is a tobacco product. Specific information about each violation is included in your council packet and is listed as follows. Exhibit 1, notice of hearing, copy of notice provided to license holder CloudX Vape regarding license renewal hearing. Exhibit 2, license renewal application. Exhibit 3, copy of November 19, 2017 initial complaint report from failed tobacco compliance check conducted at CloudX Vapes. And Exhibit 4, copy of the December 19th initial complaint report from the failed tobacco compliance checks conducted at CloudX Vapes. Your Honor, if anyone would like to make a motion, I would like to offer you Exhibits 1 through 4 into evidence.
All right, thank you, Bailey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Patrick Doran. I'm a friendly neighbor at Miller and Stevens up the road. I'm here with CloudX Vape representatives. I'll let them introduce themselves here.
I'm Billy Shasinski.
I'm Billy Shasinski, Senior, also.
I'm Jesse Shasinski. I'm Diane Hughes.
Thank you. As the council and Mr. Mayor and staff know, I was here 3 months ago. And I regret that I'm back here today. This is something that I think, as you'll hear from the CloudX Vape representatives, it's a regretful situation. I think what you're also going to hear from the CloudX representatives is that they're going to take full responsibility for what happened, and they're going to attempt to assure this council that the recommendation to deny them a license for 2018 is a little bit of a steep penalty for the situation that they've faced. And so I want to preface that by saying, I think everybody here and the two gentlemen who spoke previously hit the nail on the head. It's unacceptable. There's no excuse. And members of, citizens of Forest Lake have a right to be upset about these things. This is something that everybody should take seriously. And I'm not here to belabor the point, and I understand everybody here, I'm preaching to the choir, but I just want to advocate on behalf of Cloud X Vape as best I can. So I apologize if this becomes a little lengthy, or if this, if you hear something that you've already heard before, or you know what's coming. But it's worth mentioning because I really truly do believe in this business. I've known Billy through a professional relationship. Mr. Stevens at our office represented him previously. I've gotten to know Billy fairly well, and I do believe in his business, and I believe Billy's a good kid. As I'm sure you know, maybe you don't, the two stings that happened at Cloud X Vape, Mr. Szczecinski was not involved, Mr. Szczecinski Sr. was not involved, nobody was involved. Those were clerks at the store. And of course, as they'll tell you, those two employees, those matters were handled. So I just want to go over a little outline, and then I'm going to give each one of the representatives a chance to speak. Like I said, I'm not here to minimize the issue at all. I don't think anybody's here to make any excuses. I think what everybody's here for is for an extra opportunity to proceed with this business. Because effectively, taking away the license is taking away the business. And whether that's, and I'm sure it's not your concern, I know that, and it's not the citizens' concern. What their concern is the safety and welfare of the citizens. But I just want you to hear another side of it. Things like overhead, things like employee costs. I know Mr. Szczecinski Sr. is going to talk about a $3,000 sign that they just purchased that they were going to put up to get rid of that banner that's out there. And so they're taking steps right now to make this, take the next step to go from some small startup to an actual Forest Lake business. And I think, as maybe a couple of them will tell you, this business is doing quite well. It's not just your 2-month startup. They're struggling to get by. They're providing tax income to the city as well, and I think they'll be able to do that moving forward. Certainly, my personal opinion is that it's a viable business. So there have been changes since the time of the infractions. Obviously, Billy's parents are here, and they've stepped in, and it's kind of an advisory role. They don't want to see this kind of stuff happen either. They didn't want to see Billy's business go the route that it's headed, and so they've stepped in. His stepmother is in she's an accountant, she does payroll, a little bit of HR. Him and his father run kind of a second store in Minnetonka. They've already got their license for 2018. That business is doing well. And so I know both the Szczecinski, both Billys have been kind of going back and forth from each station. So this is really about taking responsibility for the past. Nobody can change what happened here. I don't think anybody's going to get up here and say, here's what we can do about those past infractions, because those have been already taken care of. Their goal is here to convince you that issuing them a permit in 2018 is the right decision. So like I said, there's been some changes since those infractions. That, as you'll hear from a couple of them, the person that was involved in that November 19 sting was fired. Mr. Szczecinski Billy here told his employees, you make a sale to a minor, you're going to get fired. And Ms. Szczecinski, who does the payroll, is going to corroborate that person is not getting paid anymore. So that person is no longer working there. The minor that sold on December 19th, or excuse me, the clerk that sold to the minor on December 19th, it's a little bit different circumstance. He's not working at the Forest Lake store. He's kind of on a probationary period at the Minnetonka store. But it's somebody that Mr. Szczecinski has known, went to school with Billy. He worked at the county market for 5 years, never had any issues there, ID'd people all the time. He was very, very remorseful. They had talked about how he came in and cried about it. Obviously he knew he was facing misdemeanor charges, probably didn't feel great about that. Might have been a little bit of, I'm more upset that I got caught than I did to have these punishments. But he's been given the benefit of the doubt. He's not working at the Forest Lake one, but he is on a probationary period at the Minnetonka store. And so that's a little bit different. But he is out of this community until he can show that he's doing the right thing. So obviously, as evidenced by their appearance today, Billy's father and stepmother have taken a more hands-on approach to managing this store because they want to see it succeed too. I think everybody here has a financial stake in it, and they also have a stake in their son. You know, this is kind of Billy's baby. I know Ms. Hughes runs and owns and operates the business, but Billy's the manager on duty. He's on the property. He's the one with the visions. He's the one talking to distributors. He's the one talking to employees. He's really more the hands-on actor here. And like I said, the business for the first few months has done pretty well, $40,000 to $50,000 in gross revenue in 2 months. That's providing tax income to the city. You know, I think over time that's going to grow a little bit more. Obviously, that's their goal. So I think this is a viable business for the city. Obviously, there's mistakes that happened in the past, and of course, it's unacceptable. I completely agree with it, and it's something that absolutely should not happen. And so I don't think anybody's going to be here and try to tell you that, you know, or make an excuse for it or try to minimize the issue. Those are kind of my main points. I just want to talk about, and the reason these are at the end of my speech here is because I think they're a little bit less important than what I just said, but I think it's worth mentioning. You know, I heard, you know, the chief over there talk about educational opportunities. These small businesses like Billy's don't get notification of those. You probably have to affirmatively go out and look at them. You know, Mr. Sosinski will sit up here and say that he never received a letter from the city after the first failed compliance check. He only received one letter that told him that he failed both on December 28th. I'm sure that was that December 21st letter. So that's, again, it's not an excuse, and that's why I'm throwing these in at the end, but I think it's important for the council to recognize, you know, it wasn't that they got a letter and then all of a sudden 10 days later that they did it again. You know, I know the council knows those with, you know, one or less are administratively approved, so we're really, you know, I don't like to think this way. It's one of those things where I say, you know, if Councilmember Bain assaults somebody, that it's okay for me to assault somebody. That's not fair to say, obviously. And so, you know, there's all these other businesses that have gotten at least one sting. We talked about the 6. So we're really only talking about one. I'm hesitant to say that, but I think if they would have only had one infraction, they wouldn't be up here in this situation today. So we're really just talking about the one situation. And again, that's a little of a specious argument, I get that, but you know, it's important to put things into context. You know, in fact, the state statute, you know, gives recommendations and outlines for what penalties should be. You know, and the state statute even says for a third penalty in 24 months that there's a 7-day suspension. I understand cities can come up with their own rules, and that's just a state statute, but it kind of gives an idea of, you know, where, you know, what the guideline is. And of course, I understand that the city has different ordinances, and, you know, that's a 24-month span as opposed to a 3-month span. I get that, but it's worth mentioning. You know, the CloudX vape reps know this is not excuse. They know it's not necessarily a reason to grant the 2018 permit. You know, but you know, you tell your employees there's a penalty if you sell to minors. They sell to minors, you give them that penalty. Mr. Sosinski, all of them, all the representatives can't hold these clerks' hands on a day-to-day basis. All they can do is educate them, tell them there's consequences, try to facilitate an environment that allows them to follow the law and to follow the rules. But you really can't sit there and hold their hand all day, and I can't sit there and tell somebody, you know, have a watchful eye on them 24/7 and make sure that they don't do this stuff. They did something wrong, and they got fired for it. I mean, it's just as simple as that. You tell them that there's consequences, and then the consequences happen. And so there's, you know, I'm hesitant to say it. There's other things that can be done, but to an extent. So, again, the CloudX Vape team is committed to moving forward positively, and I think each one of them will tell you that today. And I know for Billy especially, he's just learning the business. He's a young kid. He's trying to make it here. And he's trying to do everything he possibly can to make a viable business for this community, to do the right thing, to follow legal guidelines, and to again, to move forward. So I'm going to talk very briefly and allow.
I think it's time to move on. If you've got 3 other people that have a statement that want to make.
Absolutely, that's what I was getting.
Right.
That's what I was getting to. So I'd like Billy's stepmom here to go first. I'm going to let Billy go last. So. Why don't you just tell the council a few statements and.
Well, I'm Jessie Shosinski. I'm accounting manager for my day job. Billy Junior is my stepson, and I do the payroll for CloudX Vapes, and I can say that the first employee was terminated, he's no longer on the payroll, and the second one is no longer on the payroll at Forest Lake. So, I do take responsibility for this. It should not have happened. I've been in this situation where I've raised 2 minors and I didn't want tobacco in the house also, so I fully understand the concern. Thank you.
Hi, Billy Shasensky, Senior. I regret that this happened deeply. I know Billy has a passion for this e-cig business, and we watched him grow, and he's done very well, very successful. He asked us for help in Minnetonka, and just because what we've seen, what he has done, we said yes. And we've been over there and opened that business at the end of 2017 and have our 2018 tobacco license over there. We have a very good relationship with the city of Minnetonka. And we were just getting to the point of learning, about the vape stuff ourselves and trying to transfer this good energy over here to Forest Lake, because we know Billy's had a rough start. He's had some other things with another business, and then now he's kind of picked up the ball and ran with it again. So, we're trying to get over here and help him, and that's what our goal was, and it was a sting to us to get these things, and I couldn't believe it. But like I said, I know this doesn't have anything to do with that, but, we were trying to get over here to clean him up. He's got the banner, an old sign that I printed off at work. He's got a nice $3,000 sign coming, lighted, try to clean it up a bit. And the second employee, why he's still on probation with us, he's been a longtime friend of Billy, and his story matches up with the video surveillance to a T, where he asked if they were 18, and I know there's no excuses here, like you said, and she said yes, and he asked for the ID, and she was pulling it out, and immediately got distracted by another female asking a question. I don't know the police report. I don't know if there was more than one person involved in it, but it could have just been convenient that there was a second person. And like I said, there's no excuse for that. I don't know what happened with that, but Spencer has been a really good kid, and like he said, he's worked at County Market in St. Francis for 5 years, and there's never been any issue with him. We feel comfortable with him. He had a bad day. His till was even off that day. Like I said, it's not an excuse, but that's why we're kind of keeping him on, because he was just he was really disrupt when that happened, because that's not who he is. He did ask for ID, but again, it was still a mistake. And we would just really like a chance to clean this up with Billy, because like I said, we were just in the motions of starting to help him more over here, because we just got done in Minnetonka and learning about the business. We've been reading. It's surprising what he knows. But like he said, the money he's been generating, he's 22 and way too young, and that's why we tried to come in here and grab the bull by the horns to settle him down. Not that we thought he was doing anything bad, but it just kind of scared us, with that situation. So, we're here to support him, and I apologize for any of this, and we want to keep the streets of Forest Lake clean with the minors as well. And I don't want to sit here and bore you, but I'm just drawing a few blanks. I just here representing CloudX Vapes, and hopefully we can get another chance to prove that we can do well in 2018.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Hughes, and I'm basically the owner. I'm just kind of like the face of the business. I've been trying to help Billy as much as I can, and that's why we have Jesse and Billy Senior part of it, to keep on trying to take and learn and grow with the business. Billy is a good kid. I wouldn't have put up my life for him if he wasn't. I just asked for another chance. I apologize. I raised 3 girls by myself, and I went through hell raising them, and I understand that a parent does not want their child to do something that is against the law. Alcohol, underage, doing tobacco underage. I get it, I know it. And I just would come to your mercy to please ask you to reconsider. You can see the back, we have a lot of people here trying to make it work. So I'm sorry. We will do everything we can. The guy that has the little scanner, Jesse and I both looked at each other. That's a good idea. You scan it, there's no question. Thank you, and I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Billy, manager, and I wanted to say exactly what she kind of said. And when I heard him say about something about the scanner, that would be a good idea to have. I don't think I sat down and talked to my employees as much as I should have about educating them about everything. They know the standards, but I think, like you guys are saying, I like come and do a class or anything for these guys just to like educate them more, even myself, and just understand how serious this is. Because even the fines and everything, that's going to scare them more, just like it did me. I'm just saying, not that we were doing it, but I'm saying I think that everyone should know what's really going on, and I think them coming to a class and making that happen as a city, doing this for everyone, they should do that. And I think I'm going to purchase one of those. I'm happy you actually stood up there and did that. And like you said, someone was saying something about a prize if they pass. I mean, just to make these people, you know, think about it more and just do it. And I'm very nervous up here, sorry. But I just wanted to say my sorries, and I really just hope you guys let me do this. And you can see all the support I have, so please, thanks.
Thank you, Council.
All right. So where do we start with this one?
Mayor, before the discussion, if I may, Mayor, members of the council, I know Bailey had mentioned 4 different exhibits which were included in your council packet, and I would just ask for a formal motion that those be made part of the record as part of the council's deliberation for this hearing portion.
Can you bring that back up on the screen?
It's 266.
266?
Charts on 266.
Oh, okay, 266.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that items under the CloudX vape application and non-compliance forms that were submitted in the city council packet be included as part of the record as something the council is using as a decision-making authority.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that is part of our discussion. I guess I'm going to open this up. I was 22 and I made mistakes, but this is way beyond that. I didn't need my parents to come in and take responsibility for me, and that bothers me a lot because Billy, it's time to grow up. And if your parents didn't tell you that, I'm telling you that now. This is not what we want in our community. I am really torn about this. There's a lot of states legalizing marijuana, and we're sitting here discussing e-cigs. I think it's kind of frivolous and ridiculous at one point, but these are our laws, and we have to respect them. More than anything, we have to. And I've just got a lot of issues with what I've heard here tonight. Go ahead, Ed.
I just jotted down a note. I guess I'm a little bit troubled with, you're running a business. You're running a business that has violated in the past. And in one instance, you took an employee and you terminated him because it's serious. It is serious business. The other instance, it's a friend of the family. You did not terminate him. You moved him to a different location. And it just shows me that you're inconsistent in taking this thing seriously. So I have a real problem with that. And I didn't really hear. You said, well, it's a good idea that the other fellow has a machine. Maybe we'll buy a machine like that. I'm looking for more commitment than maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned, given the duration that the business has been open, open sometime in October, failed a check in November, failed a check again in December. if you're opening a new business, to me, that's when you're on the top of managing your risk. And as a new business owner, and somebody who's a responsible license holder, I'm looking for somebody who's proactively managing that risk, and in not taking advantage of the educational opportunities and not being aware of some of the electronic means to manage that risk. I'm concerned of what that shows, along with just the number of failures in a very short period of time. It's the 90 days that we just granted a license, and typically you start on your best behavior and then things get worse, and that's the part that troubles me the most. So
I think the part that troubles me the most is that, Billy, you said that you didn't provide proper training to your brand new employees basically a couple months into your business. And, I know I work in HR normally, but that's the time that you set the expectation of the highest is when they first started. So I'm not sure what you were thinking about when you didn't provide good enough training, but I concur with Councilmember Bain. 3 months in, this is, I think your attorney said it is unfortunate. I would say it's a lot more than unfortunate.
Thank you. So,
I don't know. I don't remember.
we also did that lakeside market a couple of years ago.
Can't hear you.
Oh, that was intentional.
I'd like to hear it.
I was asking what the consequences are for this second violation.
So I could use some clarification, or maybe just open up a discussion. So we have on the table the renewal for 2018. Do we have an option today to have a suspension period where we would choose that we would renew a license with a effective date other than the beginning of the year, and have what we would discuss to be an appropriate suspension period? Is that an option that we can make tonight, or would that require a change in ordinance to do?
So Mayor, members of the council, there's sort of two pieces here. Tonight is the license renewal hearing. Because of the second compliance check failure, there will be if the license is renewed with conditions or without conditions, then there would be a second appearance or a second hearing noticed on this matter, at which time the council can impose the license suspension or some longer period of suspension as allowed by the code. But essentially, this has been bifurcated into two different pieces. First, the renewal piece, and if that goes through, then the penalty piece. So at this point, the only question is, and again, the council really has three options, which is to renew the license with conditions, or vote to deny the license.
So the renewal of license with conditions might be a shorter period of time than a year?
The renewal license would be for a year. The way the code is structured, all of our licenses are set up for a year, but you could certainly include conditions as part of that renewal license, including purchase of, and again, you'd have to wordsmith it, but technology that would only allow a sale at point of sale if a valid identification is provided. Obviously, you'd have some phasing time for that. That wouldn't happen overnight, but that could be a condition of license, things like that.
And we would make those decisions not tonight, but in a second hearing, is that correct?
No, Mayor and members of the council, that would be tonight.
Tonight, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
What about imposing this technology to these folks and making it mandatory for them? The technology that this gentleman brought up for the tobacco business. Or are we allowed to do something like that?
Mayor, members of the council, yes, as part of the sort of the conditions, license with conditions, which is where you're at tonight, you could impose as a condition that they invest in this type of technology, that they would have a reader set up, and again, you'd have to say what the time frame is for that, but something that would require presentation of a valid identification or age verification before a sale could be made.
I think something like that might help both them and us, because they'd be able to actually verify, and then I assume we'd have some way of maybe checking that out. I don't know.
The mayor's council, of course, the old-fashioned way of verifying is looking at the license.
It is.
And and so to the extent that the technology is not used, you're potentially at risk of violation. And so, it's good. It takes the math out of the equation, but the reality is for lots of years, people have checked IDs and just had this, the dates available to people, like don't sell if they have a birthday before this date. Probably the more meaningful, and the technology is great, I don't want to discount that at all, but typically the more meaningful conditions that you would consider would be if another violation happens, automatic revocation, or, and maybe Bridget has comments on, the feasibility of that, but that'd be a more likely next step than, the non-renewal of the license this evening. If you wanted to provide some opportunity for them to continue on, but we're serious about wanting them to move toward compliance, probably a more middle of the road approach would be approve license with condition of, no failures within, 1 year. If you do fail, automatic revocation or something along those lines.
So I have a question. If we were to go down the path of adding technology, so in other words, a license approval with conditions, does those conditions go away when we renew the license next year? Or,
Mayor, members of the council, yes, so this would be for this year because each year is a yearly.
and that's why I would argue that we don't do something with conditions. We either approve it or deny it, and it's up to them, if they want to come back in here again next year, if they have a failure, to have that conversation at that point. So I would not advocate for something with conditions at this point.
Could you, I could use a little bit of education on what the applicant's options would be under a relicensing, if a license is revoked, to get a license again. What does that option look like? Or what would that process look like?
Mayor, members of the council, my understanding is that, and I'm going to have to look in the code here, I believe if the license is revoked and they're not eligible to obtain a license again within a year-long period, I would have to confirm that. And I would note to Councilmember Fear's question, or some comments I should say, regarding third violation within 24 months. The way the city code is written, a third violation within 24 months, so within a 2-year period, or for sales during a license suspension shall result in a license revocation. So that's
Correct.
already, that's already the next step.
Yes.
Okay. Guess not hearing any more conversation. We'll look for a motion on this.
Your Honor, just before you get to that, I'm not sure if you got this or not, but obviously one option, of course, is to approve the license, with conditions, as Bridget mentioned. Another, or just approve it with some feedback. The other is to look at the resolution denying the license, and to the extent that you want to do that, there is a resolution here that is on your screen. And Bailey maybe can get the resolution number if you're going to do that, but it does, speak to basically just, lays out the various facts as you've already seen them, and speaks to, the specific findings that you would need to look at for a non-renewal of the license.
Go ahead.
Just so I'm clear, if we were to grant this license, then if I understood Bridget correctly, that if there's another violation within 24 months, the license would automatically be revoked?
Well, that's the penalty. There would be an opportunity for a hearing, so there'd be notice and a hearing and opportunity to
But that
come in.
would be the penalty.
That is the penalty stated.
But
in the
there's no, you can shut you down for a week, 2 weeks, or any of those options in between?
Ultimately, the mayor, members of the council, the decision is up to the council, even on a mandatory penalty. So there is always that option.
That had previously been the approach in our code prior to the last revision of the ordinance, and so I believe the last compliance issue we had, was a situation where there was, do you guys recall, was it a 10-day, like a 7 or 10 day?
10 days.
Yeah, so at that time, the feeling was that wasn't adequate given some of the circumstances, and that this revision was made, so.
Mayor, can I talk?
Quickly.
That's the way I talk. I'm kind of surprised the way you guys are going here about getting rid of the license. This is a money-hungry town. They took our township because they wanted the money. You can sue these people every time they make a mistake, and that does us some good. And they'll learn after a few more being sued, or you're going to charge them extra for their license. And what does it say in the Bible? Let him who is without sin throw the first stone, right? And I don't imagine you guys got any stones on you, because I'm sure you guys have made mistakes, and I know I have. I smoked cigarettes from the time I was 13 years old, and now I'm 85, so it didn't kill me. And I'm not saying it's good for you, but you know, when we were kids, we were poor. So to get cigarettes was kind of a task. You had to see if the guy was watching when you took it. So this isn't such a serious thing, in my opinion. For one thing, I hate what the chief was talking about when they get some girl to come in and pretend, and she's 21 or 18 or whatever she's trying to prove. I don't like that. She's trying to cheat people. I think they should arrest them kind of people. Make their mother come and say, hey, take this kid home and teach her some manners and some lessons. Don't deny the people the license. Fine them and keep fining them. And we'll get some extra money, and I like that idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a motion?
I actually agree that, but I think there should be maybe some sort of a probationary thing. I guess I don't really know how to word it, but maybe renew the license for 6 months and see, or something like that. I don't really know, but maybe something like that would work. But I would highly recommend these folks to have that technology, and I don't care, every person that walks in the door will use it. Every single person. I don't care if it's Alvin. Check him out. Check his ID. Alvin or whatever.
Now it's Alvin.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe. But the point is, it doesn't matter. Use the technology and check every person that comes in the door. And so, anyways, I
don't believe we can renew the license for just 6 months. I believe the
yeah,
attorney said
I'm
that,
just
so, yeah.
looking at whatever possibilities or probation things. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of the mind that to deny the license is a bit extreme without going through some other steps prior to that. Anything from fines to shutting down for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 30 days. I think there's a lot of steps in between. I think the business owner themselves should take a hard look at whether he should be managing that store. Maybe he should be the one transferred to Minnetonka for a while until he grows a little bit more experience. I can't tell them how to run their business. Point I'm trying to make is, it is a business. There are steps in between that we can take short of saying you're out of business.
All right. Thank you, Ed. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I know you let this gentleman speak. May I speak as a citizen?
Sure.
I'd like to speak in generalities. My name is Adam Gerbovi, 165 First Street Northeast, downtown. I want to applaud this council and Mr. Mayor tonight for taking the time to listen to all these business people. And I see that what you're dealing with. There are people, the salespeople that get the misdemeanor arrest. Our police chief and the teams go out and do their proper job. They bring it in front of you. I have not heard one manager take that misdemeanor arrest. The clerk got it. I've seen a lot of that in prior history. As my history of being a police officer prior and being retired, the clerk takes the fall. Manager goes, okay, $500 is nothing. I can go back and make that in 2 days, maybe less. The point is when you hold the manager accountability there for training and responsibility for the employees, as Councilman Fair has been alluding to, which is very good, I think the managers will take note. I think that's why you have a rise in what's happening, whether it's liquor or tobacco or e-cigs. It's all across the boards. When the managers take note, they will take good care of their businesses. I've heard that tonight from the compliances. That's wonderful. Those are the true managers we need to keep in our city. And we need to say thank you to them. The others, we need to deal with them however you see fit. And the managers are here tonight trying to explain what they're going to do in the future. Now you have them at bay to hold them accountable. Please do that as a city council. That's all I ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Councilman Eigner, as usual, you're pretty smart. Not that I We have a running joke going right now, so it's all right.
I don't have the squirrel suit on.
Right. No, I agree with you. As much as I disagree with everything that happened with this business, I don't think I can suspend, or I can not give them a license at this point. Do I think that there may be some type of sanction at the next hearing? Yeah, I do, if I get my way, but I do think that you deserve to have a license. It's not just one, well, this is 1 year and you're done. The third time is revocation, and that's not what, we haven't gotten to that point, unfortunately, yet.
So I also struggle on putting somebody out of business. I wish we could, as a council tonight, choose management or choose training programs or choose technology, but that's not really the decision we get to make tonight. We just get to decide whether somebody has a privilege of managing a tobacco license in this city of Forest Lake. And I'm concerned of the history on this one. I do believe that we do have room under some sort of a penalty phase that I would like to, I'm open to talking about. I also believe that under 90 days, if we've already have 2 violations in 90 days and we still, within our current guidelines, have a 2-year period, so one more in essentially, 20 months, we're not going to have to make a decision. The decision is going to be made for us. And so I think that should give, if management hasn't already had incentive to get their act together, that will take care of it for us. So I am open to approving a license tonight and going into a penalty phase and talking about some sort of whether it's 2 weeks or 30 days. I think Mr. Gerbovi's point is right on, is that it's unfortunate that the employee takes the big hit.
Right.
I don't think $50 is a sufficient enough penalty, and I think there should be a suspension period we should discuss as part of a penalty phase.
All right. So does somebody want to make a motion?
Billy, what would the fine normally be? That would be automatic, I mean, as far as our ordinance is concerned.
The first is 250, the second is 500, and I'll have to look at the third.
So we're into the second violation, basically.
We're in the second violation, which is a $500 fine as well as a 5-day suspension.
But that's decided at the penalty phase, correct?
Right.
So right now, there's nothing at this point until we have the hearing next.
So Mayor, members of the council, yes, because we took this with a bifurcated approach, not knowing which direction council would go, we would need to send a separate notice regarding the hearing on the penalty phase.
Can I make a motion?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that at this time we renew the license for 2018, predicated on call it the penalty phase. And at that time, there'll be another hearing. And the decision as to what that penalty might be would happen at that time.
I'll second it.
All right, great. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, bring up, is it Liquidate next one?
Yeah, isn't that the one that they asked to do?
That was one that was asked to be tabled, I believe.
Mayor and members of the council, Liquid Vape is before the council tonight for a hearing concerning the renewal of its tobacco license application. Similar process here, compliance checks done by the Forest Lake Police Department both on November 19th and December 19th of 2017. Liquid Vape is the tobacco license holder for the premises located at 67 Lake Street South in Forest Lake. Michael Weidenhammer is the owner and applicant. On December 20, 2017, Liquid Vape has submitted an application for renewal of its existing license. Because Liquid Vape failed 2 tobacco compliance checks in November and December of 2017, the tobacco license application is before the council for consideration. Liquid was also served with a notice of this hearing by certified mail on December 21st, 2017. The alleged tobacco license violations occurred on November 19, 2017, December 19, 2017. In both cases, a tobacco compliance check was, as I mentioned, conducted by the Forest Lake Police Department with the assistance of an underage buyer who entered the licensed premises and was sold e-juice, which contains nicotine and is a tobacco product. Additionally, Liquid Vape has failed compliance checks that were conducted on April 5, 2016, May 6, 2015, and November 25th of 2014. Specific information about each violation is included in your council packet and is listed as follows. Exhibit 1, notice of hearing, copy of notice provided to license Liquid Vape regarding license renewal hearing. Exhibit 2, license renewal application. Exhibit 3, copy of November 19, 2017's initial compliant report from failed tobacco compliance check conducted at Liquid Vape. Exhibit 4, copy of December 19, 2017 initial compliant report from failed tobacco compliance check conducted at Liquid Vape on December 19th. And Exhibit 5, copy of the April 5th, 2016 tobacco compliance check form from failed tobacco compliance check at Liquid Vape. Exhibit 6, copy of the May 6, 2015 tobacco compliance check from the failed tobacco compliance check at Liquid Vape. And Exhibit 7, copy of the November 25th, 2014 tobacco compliance check form conducted at Liquid Vape. Your Honor, if anyone would like to make a motion, I would like to offer Exhibits 1 through 7 as evidence.
So I make a motion, we approve the exhibits 1 through 7 as evidence.
Second. Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Chapter 118 of the City Code provides various grounds for denial of renewal of a tobacco license. Pursuant to City Code Section 118.05, staff recommends denial of the renewal application for Liquid Vape for the following reasons. The license activity has been conducted in such manner to constitute a menace to health, safety, and welfare of the public upon recommendation of the police chief or appropriate city official, as evidenced by its failure of 5 separate compliance checks within the past 4 years. The licensee has failed to continuously comply with all conditions required to the precedent to the approval of the license renewal, namely failure to operate the licensed business in a lawful manner by allowing the illegal sale of tobacco and tobacco products to an underage purchaser on multiple occasions. The licensee has conducted business in violation of any regulation or provision of the city code applicable to the activity for which the license has been granted, or any regulation of state law that may be applicable, namely by allowing illegal sale of tobacco products to an underage purchaser on 5 separate occasions. Other good cause for non-renewal of the license exists, namely the licensee allowing the illegal sale of tobacco products to an underage purchaser on 5 separate occasions within the past 4 years. Your decision is to make a motion to approve the renewal application with conditions, or deny the renewal application tonight. And I believe they also are here to speak along with a representative.
Thank you, Bailey.
Mayor, members of the council, if I may also, there was a request that was received by the city on Friday to continue this hearing, so I believe that the attorney representing the businesses here and did want to speak with the council regarding that request. I don't know what the status of that is before digging into the meat of any hearing that may or may not be conducted tonight.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Jeff Olson. I am legal counsel. Don't hold that against me, because I think what's important here when we do get to the issues is that you hear less from me and more from my clients. But for tonight's purposes, I do have a request for a continuance before the council. I was retained about 2:30 on Thursday afternoon. And so normally when I present or appear in front of a council, prior to that, I always try and take the opportunity to sit down with city staff to fully discuss what has occurred and what is before the council and find solutions. I'll give you a couple observations that I've seen tonight. And I've been doing this for almost 26 years. Couple observations, maybe four. One, I've got two new friends. That's what government in a community is about. People coming and showing up and voicing their opinions. I love it. It's the basis of our communities. Second, some of you might be old enough to remember Paul Harvey, and there's always that rest of the story. Hopefully, if we need to, we'll get into it tonight. I would like to see this continued, and we can present that to staff and then eventually the council. Third, there have been a lot of good points made tonight about technology. That's been implemented for everyone, whether you're 16 or 60 at my client's business. So they're taking steps. But I see this, sitting here tonight, I mean, when I was retained, I heard a little bit about my client's background, but now I've learned more. And I think it's good that the council has taken the time to ask questions and explore. You've had a rash of incidents here. My clients operate stores in Hastings and Superior, and they've never had a failure. And they're getting these failures, and I think it's good that you're going to sit down in a work session and explore if it's done, because ultimately you're getting to a point where you're deciding people's livelihoods based upon what occurs on those. Fourth, I've heard, this point has nothing to do with the continuance. But I've heard some comments tonight about, well, they're no longer working there. We've fired them. They don't learn anything other than they get fired. I tell you what, sitting with the two sales representatives earlier today, there are no two people that understand the gravity and the seriousness of what's going on tonight than those two people. You will never be able to take a new employee in and train them and say it's really important because if you sell to a minor, this is what's going to happen. They know it. They're sitting there with their livelihood in front of them and knowing that they could have, it's in the air, they may have put the two principals out of business. You can't teach that to a new employee. There's a number of you on this council that either hire, teach, manage, educate, train, fire. You've run your own businesses or you've been in that position. The one thing you can count on is that no matter how good you train, how many reminders you provide, there will always, I've been doing this a long time, mistakes happen. So with that said, I would ask the council to continue this until the next meeting, which I think is the 22nd. I promise you we will sit down with my client and city staff and explore some of the options that are out there, some that we've already taken, including the technology, and including we're exploring an option, I don't know if it's viable yet, to tie that card reader to your POS register. So if you don't put it in there, whether you're 6 or 16 or any age, it will not allow a sale transaction to occur. I can't promise that yet, but that is what we're exploring as one additional piece of technology. If we have the opportunity, I think we might be able to sit down with staff and come up with maybe a list or a sort of a best practices that, I don't want to be presumptuous, but you might consider adopting into your ordinance to help so that we don't have another rash of these incidents. I'd love to sit down with staff and maybe the chief can send a representative so that we can find a way to, stop this. So with that, get back to I did submit a letter, talked to Ms. Nason, and then submitted a letter suggesting that it might be beneficial for everyone if we continue this for 14 days and come back with some good solutions, and then everybody can tackle it head on. So with that, I would ask for a continuance of 14 days, come back here on the 22nd for the motion or for the application to renew. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to hear opinions from the council.
Where do we stand with the existing license? When does it expire? I mean, do we have that kind of time?
Mayor, members of the council, the existing license expired on December 31st.
So technically, they have no license.
Technically, they have no license. We have informed them by letter, as we did for all of the license holders whose licenses we weren't able to renew before they expired, that the city would not be taking any enforcement action solely based on the expiration of that license until such time as the council had the opportunity to consider the applications.
And can we accommodate this request as far as time?
It's just an additional period of time, so the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a reasonable request myself, and I therefore would make a motion that we do allow the extension to the January 22nd date.
Is staff going to have time to sit down and work with them in between? I know we're getting into transition point at this time.
No, I think Dan and Bailey and Bridget really have been working on this, and certainly I think it's reasonable to, do it and set it to the 22nd.
I guess my only input on it is, given that we just renewed the other license and, proceeding with the hearing, to me that seems a little more logical to look at, renewing a license and then dealing with the consequences of the inspection failures afterwards. But
In this case, I don't agree with that because there's 5 violations here. I mean, this is a little bit more
4 years.
severe.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to second the motion so we can continue this discussion. But I don't have a problem putting this off. The reason I don't have a problem putting it off is because I think this one's a little bit more serious because of the 5 violations in 4 years. I was looking for the dates in the packet. I found 3 violations in the packet, so I'll need to figure out what those dates were again. If I remember correctly from what I read originally, there was not 3 violations in a 24-month period, if I'm correct.
That is correct. Well, there were 3 violations, but one of them was not given a fine, more on the educational side, I would say.
Okay.
That was prior to my tenure here.
Okay. But I would still be in favor of pushing it off. I don't think there's any problem with staff knowing more about what's happening. It's, it's the way the world works.
all right, we have a motion and a second.
I guess I hesitate on allowing the continuance just for the technical purpose of staff doesn't have discretion on whether we grant a license or not. I think we have discretion and staff can make different recommendations on what do we do with that situation. But all of that just, functionally is just going to mean that we have a more productive penalty phase if we were to go down that same path. So I can see the logic in this case. We are talking about livelihood, and taking some additional time to make sure we've got the right facts on the table is prudent. So.
Okay. Well, we do have a motion and a second to continue it. And if there's no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. 7F, Ryan. Goodview Avenue, 8th Street intersection and pedestrian safety features.
Mayor, City Council, in your packet on page 291 of the City Council packets, you have a memo prepared that provides a project update schedule, project funding, and some other opportunities based on where the current city-led engineering study has resulted. So Back in 2016, the city led an engineering study that included MnDOT and Forest Lake School District at the intersection of Goodview Avenue, 8th Street's intersection, and Highway 97. And upon that, we've come to the approved roundabout concept as you see on the screen. Total project costs estimated for this improvements, not including the pedestrian grade separation, are estimated at 2.9 to 3.2 million. That includes preliminary and final design, right-of-way acquisition, construction administration, and inspection. Since that time of the completion of this study, MnDOT has worked diligently on finding funding, and through the Federal Highway Safety Improvement Program dollars, out of a number of applications, they have come up with 1.4 million to put towards the roundabout project. That was secured, and the funding must be let. The project would have to be let, thus bidded, between July 2019 and June of 2020. And there's a estimated schedule within the memo too. So next steps, if moving forward, would basically get to the point of creating an approved preliminary layout that's approved by all the divisions within MnDOT. That will then set the construction limits and would know our right-of-way acquisitions needed, and then probably September 18 at that point is when you would make the decision to move into final design. And then our schedule, we would probably want to bid in March of 2020, which that would align construction to start in May of 2020. With that schedule, obviously it gives us some time to find other sources of funding to help buy down the local share. However, if we are not successful in obtaining any additional funding opportunities, we would basically use the city state aid construction account allotment, a combination of the projected balance that's forecasted for years 20 and 21, and then our annual construction allotments of 20 and 21. There are just a couple opportunities in here that we'll certainly pursue for the local share. With this moving forward, basically we're asking or requesting the city council to accept the money from MnDOT and move forward with preliminary engineering. At this time, the decision's not made to move forward with the pedestrian grade separation. If that's something that the city wants to pursue, there are a number of opportunities funding-wise we can pursue too. Most likely, though, we would have to advance construct because those fiscal years of that money would be outside our construction limits if successful on some of that. There are opportunities annually that do come up related to smaller safe route to school projects, so potentially that'd be some of the funding sources on even at your at-grade trail extension connections. But at this time, basically, we're asking the city council to formally accept the money from MnDOT and move forward with preliminary engineering. But no decision to be made tonight on the pedestrian grade separation portion of the project. I did bring some stuff if there's a lot of information. I know based on some of the questions that have previously been asked, but I know this wasn't something easy for MnDOT to obtain for us, especially considering some of the other applications that were in line with this, but I do feel that's a good credit of how closely you guys have worked with MnDOT over the last 2 years. Then also knowing the political situation of the unfortunate incident that did occur in this situation. And this is just one of the blocks in our 497 adventure we're trying to pursue and bring down the funding costs of all that. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to say it again. I've said it several times before. I just don't believe that this is going to improve safety. And I haven't seen anything that says it's going to. I mean, that's my big problem with this whole design is, we're here to improve safety. I don't want to see any other pedestrian, anybody hit, killed, anything there. But I just don't see where this is better than what we have now. I would like to see a design that really is improved. That's my only problem with it. The at-grade, or the pedestrian bridge is gonna have to be part of it if this is built. And we are on the hook for a couple million for that. Beyond what MnDOT, I appreciate MnDOT wanting to work with us on this project. And I really do believe they're trying to work with us by giving us some type of design, something. But they're not living and breathing here every day and, you know, seeing the traffic there. There's property at the school. I think we worked with the school. You know, there's areas there that could be incorporated into this instead of just trying to work in the existing right-of-way. Maybe moving that roundabout to the south and to the west a little bit would allow a much safer crossing. You know, maybe moving the pedestrian bridge just to the east side of the intersection before the car. You know, there's got to be potentials for increasing that safety. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm not an analyst to look at this and say, yeah, we are going to save lives. It's a terrible tragedy that somebody did get here and killed in that intersection. But I don't know if it was the intersection's fault. It was a tragedy. It was an accident. Something that probably wasn't avoidable no matter what. And for us to just throw a few $1 million to address something and end up with potentially a more dangerous intersection, that's where I have problems with it. I just want an expert to say, yes, this design works, this will save lives. Go ahead, Mike.
I hate roundabouts, and I think that's pretty well known. I think anything that slows traffic down at this intersection can't hurt. I think you're right. We can't say that it's going to prevent any issues at this intersection in the future. I don't think there's any design that we can guarantee is going to prevent more issues. I agree with the statement that we're on the hook for several $1 million for the bridge that seems to wind to nowhere. Obviously for ADA compliance, but it's a huge bridge for the purpose of that. That costs a lot of money, and I just have to keep coming back, for me, that we're slowing traffic down. There's a trail that comes off of the bridge and on the other side to guide people down the path as well. That is an improvement. So while I agree that it's not necessarily the perfect situation, it's better than what's there now, and we have to do something. My issue is that no matter what, we're not doing anything till 2020. And there is more my issue is we should be doing it today, better yet yesterday. I don't know how that's possible, obviously, but we've got to do something, and soon.
Go ahead.
I guess my issue is the roundabout, I don't think is going to solve the problem. The problem is we still have people crossing where they shouldn't be crossing. For the cost of a roundabout and a bridge, you throw that all in there, we could hire an officer and have him full-time during school hours before and after, sit there for 20 years at the cost of this, and enforce kids from crossing that street illegally. It's just, to me, there's other things we can do other than put a roundabout there. Roundabouts don't seem to be the answer to everything.
Yeah, and you know, to address a couple points, the roundabout does slow traffic down, but it doesn't stop it. Right now, we're stopping traffic, and you know, if you look at, I mean, the extreme angles on, you know, a couple of, you know, especially if you're going east on 97, I mean, you're doing I don't know if it's not 180, but you're making a pretty sharp curve, and then you're turning back the other way, and you know, when you're the driver of that car, I believe just having to make all those turns through there is affecting your ability to watch for pedestrians. And that's why I'm stating what I stated. And, you know, as you mentioned, the design of the pedestrian bridge, I mean, the design almost makes it functionally obsolete. I don't know how many people are gonna wanna walk, you know, 3 times the distance to get across the road. And as we found out with the other roundabouts, you know, the bridge, after we approve that, and they've got them drawn in here, there's pedestrian crossings at grade anyway. And so I don't feel we're accomplishing anything but, you know, spending a few $1 million and getting something that's new and different, but not better.
I have a clarifying question for Ryan. Ryan, does this design prohibit a tunnel if we were to decide a tunnel were desirable at some point? I know we're not making a decision tonight on a bridge, but does this design prohibit a tunnel?
Well, the school district was pretty adamant about not supporting the tunnel. We certainly could fit the tunnel. You'd probably have to raise the roundabout grade to accommodate that because your low floor opening of the tunnel to the north will have to be above the bounds of the wetland.
Right.
I don't believe the school district was paying for any of this though, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the school district's concerns around a tunnel, and I have some of those concerns myself, but so I'm looking at it from, there's some questions around what the right pedestrian facility is here. But we do have an opportunity with MnDOT coming to the table with $1.4 million to make some improvements to traffic flow. And we're not stopping traffic, but I do think a roundabout is going to slow traffic. And also key on this intersection is the alignment, and this realigns that intersection. I was just there this last weekend, and yet again, making certain turns at that intersection are incredibly awkward and dangerous, and this fixes a lot of those solutions. So I also share Councilmember Fear's concern around timeline, and more conversations on design is only going to delay that timeline and perhaps miss an opportunity for what MnDOT has brought to the table. And I would just add on to that, one more comment. I also have a concern around just the optics at the state level. Here we are looking to get a bonding request for significant dollars for all of 97, and us not taking advantage of this opportunity, I think really we're shooting ourselves in the foot on what the much larger request is, because there is a much larger need on 97.
So Ryan, a question: if we did go to a metered intersection, is this funding contingent upon this actual design?
MnDOT's cost participation was applied to this particular concept is how the 1.4 million was calculated.
So Mayor, members of council, I mean, I think you have to reflect back. You know, we spent a good deal of time in the intersection control evaluation determining what was the right solution for this intersection. When you make that determination, it's sent to MnDOT, and there's some commitment on their part to the ultimate design here. And now it's not necessarily. So I think from an overall perspective, their decision was predicated, on the overall concept here. As you evolve, if you're discussing pedestrian features, is that the absolute alignment that it's got to happen? Not necessarily. There's reasons for everything, that you see here, of course, but, not different than the conversation we had on the existing one. I mean, maybe you can put some stairs here, still make the ADA compliance, to have the right grade, but maybe you put stairs here to make it a, more direct route for the majority of the users, on that particular overpass. It is a situation, pedestrian discussion aside on this, this would represent an enhancement to the vehicular traffic there, what you're seeing now is, as previously mentioned, you have some really odd angles here. You do not have dedicated right or left turn lanes at this point in time, and so you see a high level of congestion due to the fact that you're people waiting for lefts, and then they're making bad decisions in the intersection based on the weird geometrics, the fact that they are waiting through many cycles to get where they need to go. And so from that perspective, certainly this represents an upgrade from a vehicular perspective. With the medians that are created, even at the at-grade crossing situation where pedestrians have the opportunity to stop in the middle, to assess their ability to move on to the next leg or the next crossing. Certainly there's an opportunity even with the at grade. But the reality is people are trying to cross the state highway there. And, the unfortunate situation for Forest Lake High School is it's bordered by 2 state highways. State highways are designed to move people, and so you're going to have to be creative and willing to accept, maybe a less than ideal situation to try to balance those 2 things out. But, that ICE report, is a pretty important evaluation. Realistically, no matter what your final solution is here, even if you take the pedestrian feature out of this, whenever this intersection is reconstructed, you are going to have about the same level of local cost participation as you do in any configuration. A signalized intersection, which we evaluated in the ICE report, roundabout configuration. You have 2 legs of this intersection, you're going to pay about half of the cost when it's time to reconstruct. The situation out there right now is a temporary situation. You don't have permanent lights. It was never designed to be a long-term solution for this area. And at least this provides you the opportunity for, a better situation. So it's that whole concept of let's not let perfect be the enemy of the good. Make some progress here. And you still have the ability to pursue all those alternative funding sources for the right pedestrian solution if that's what the council wants to look at in the future.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we're approving a design necessarily. It's kind of a concept. That's right, Ryan? I mean, it's pretty much it. And if you look at the study that was done with roundabouts, they've got a great safety reputation as far as vehicle traffic is concerned. Not necessarily pedestrian, but with vehicle traffic. So the big thing, as far as I can see, is dealing with the pedestrians. Otherwise, I think roundabouts work great. They're low maintenance.
I think roundabouts do work great for vehicle traffic. And, it's probably the solution for this, but this design is not. And once we approve it, it's done, because I've dealt with MnDOT too many times on this.
Yeah, but we're not approving it tonight, though, are we?
I think the way to look at it is this is a concept design and an intersection control evaluation. Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but MnDOT's commitment is based on the idea that we're going to do a roundabout. Is this the final design on what it's going to look like? Absolutely not. That's what preliminary design and final design are for. But I would say that they'd have some reluctance if you're going to say we want to switch back to a controlled intersection. That's probably a different discussion.
But MnDOT also only works within their given right-of-way, correct?
Well, this is
not going to look at.
This is a locally initiated project. So MnDOT's saying we're going to contribute $1.4 million. They are not going to limit us if, let's say, the school district's willing to provide some right-of-way here for a bit of an alternative design. Now, realistically, you got to match up with the roadway. I mean, that's the driving factor here. You got to match up with the roadway that's coming into this thing ultimately. But, certainly if there is a design that envisions some right-of-way from the school, they're not going to be averse to that. It doesn't have to be within the current right-of-way footprint. In fact, I think the budget contemplates the acquisition of some right-of-way to make this happen.
In part of the school district site approvals that previously happened the last couple of years too, we have accommodated and obtained easements in some of these areas. So what you're seeing in the green line is just the platted or dedicated right-of-way. There are some easements that have been attained as part of the school projects as well.
Okay.
I'll just say a couple more things just so I share the information and feel like I've educated you with what I have. Obviously MnDOT went and supported this concept and how they obtained their funding. Some Zach verbiage from Adam Josephson, who you've seen here and presented, basically said, Ped Bridge, all felt the Ped Bridge would see little use and add significant cost. I think we all kind of agreed on that. The roundabout versus signal. Roundabout would be a better design to provide for safety benefits for peds, bikes, and vehicles. Roundabout would slow traffic in the area. Signal would not have the same effect when light is green, particularly for traffic coming from the east. A roundabout would improve ped safety. Signal would increase ped crossing distances. Some other things that we pulled from certain books, chance of fatality with lower vehicles in a roundabout is 15% if a pedestrian is hit. Ranges from 45 to 85% with signals dependent on posted speeds. That's from the effects of roundabouts on pedestrian traffic. Converting conventional intersections to roundabouts can reduce pedestrian crashes by 75% from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. The percent chance I'm going to say here is a pedestrian's death if hit by a vehicle is 5% if the vehicles are moving through at 20, 40% if they're moving at 30, 80% if they're moving at 40, and 100% if they're moving at 50 miles an hour from the FHWA. In October 30th, 2017, MnDOT released a study that nearly 200 roundabouts in the states are reducing serious injuries. This is a clip out of the executive summary. The state's nearly 200 roundabouts are reducing serious injury and saving lives, according to the new study released by the Minnesota Department of Transportation. The study examined the safety performance of roundabouts by comparing before and after construction crash rates. It shows there has been multiple vehicle fatality in roundabouts, and it shows there hasn't been multi-vehicle fatality in roundabout in Minnesota. There was an 86% reduction in fatal crash rate at intersections where roundabouts were installed and 83% reduction in serious injury crash rate. The report also showed the following data at intersections with signal lane roundabouts, the most common type of roundabout in the state. 69% reduction in right angle crash rates, 83% reduction in left turn crash rates, 61% reduction in injury crash rates. For all roundabout types, there was a 42% reduction in injury crash rates. I believe Aaron emailed that document out too, so it was about 30 pages.
Go ahead, Ed.
Ryan, as part of this study, how does this work with the two roundabouts we already have on 61? When you come out of that roundabout now, I mean, you're going.
So part of the
theoretically, you could come out of two roundabouts, and then hit this one.
So part of the study included modeling, and we visually got to watch how taking the traffic lot and projection of the traffic, we could see how it would perform today and 30 years from now with that construction, without expansion.
And with the increase on 97 going in the future with development, how far in the future is this roundabout?
It would serve the levels that are acceptable by MnDOT to accept this 30 years forecasted out,
okay,
with the growth that they required us to use in the model.
Do they show it when the students are getting out of classes? Because that intersection and the other intersections get super, super busy. And those roundabouts, I know I hate roundabouts, but they don't work when there's a lot of traffic.
We used a number of traffic information, and at the time before starting, one of the first things we did was do live traffic counts at this intersection to know turning movements of the school morning, AM, and PM peaks. That was all built within the traffic forecast that MnDOT required us to use. And that's all shown in the ICE report too, all the levels of service, at what times and what level it will perform to.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I look at this like two or three ways. One, it's definitely going to accommodate traffic. It's going to improve traffic, slow traffic down. I don't have a problem with that. But then when we're looking at the real problem, which unfortunately came from a fatality there about pedestrian safety, I have a question in my mind whether this is going to solve that. And I'm most disturbed that since that fatality, no one has done as much as put a crossing guard out there, the school system or us. I mean, it's like, what are you waiting for? You're waiting for another person to get killed?
So there have been
I know that's not a permanent answer, but in the short term, this is not going to be built in 2 years. We should have something out there, and maybe it's working with the school system to do that. We have resource officers at that school every day. Maybe in the morning they can set their squad car there for while the students come to class, and in the evening have that squad car there when they leave, so that they're not zipping across illegally across the street. And there's things we can do right now, and no one's doing that.
The fatality that happened was a low-speed fatality as well, correct?
It was-
Under 10 miles an hour, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want, though, you to know MnDOT did do some short-term, high-benefit improvements at their cost, and no city participation here. And I think they spent close to $10,000 on electronic devices with the signal.
Right, but I think there's more we can do. I mean, this is fine for traffic. I'd like to see more happen right now.
Does that pedestrian bridge have to be within a certain distance of the roundabout?
No, you can cross 97 whenever you want. It's just trying to close it to the existing trails right here on the concept, and purely was taking LiDAR information. Now, during a preliminary design, after you have actual topo survey, you might be able to squeeze the distance of up that, or if you wanted to wrap around the treatment plant, you certainly could bring things closer.
Well, I just, could you actually put the ramp running parallel to 97 and then make a 90 and go across?
Yeah, you just would obviously want a wide enough radius on there, so for snow plowing purposes.
Right, but you could, so the pedestrian bridge might be down another 100, 150 feet.
So like what we have currently on the west side of 61 by the old Public Works building, the zigzag, you could do something like that on the side and then come straight across and come like that again.
Or just one ramp going up and just one curb on the top or something, but yeah, I just think we can do a lot better, and I don't want to say yes to this without, knowing we need to try to improve that design.
Knowing we have a workshop coming up again, and I'm sure it's a full agenda, do we want this back on the workshop so we can actually finalize something? And Ed, I agree with you. What are we going to do now? What can we do now? And what do we want to do with the pedestrian overpass? I think we, not here, even though I've heard two people say that they don't like the idea of the roundabout, it sounds like it's more about the pedestrian issue than anything else for the most part.
Members Council, and again, the pedestrian component of this is not part of the discussion at this point in time. That we're not funded for an overpass here. We're funded for a roundabout, and that's what the offer is, and that really isn't going to materially change a lot of the discussion points that you've had here this evening. MnDOT has given us a deadline here to get back to them. We got offered when you received the information previously in December, and this is again a competitive situation where project previously allocated somehow fell through, and we were able to be positioned, and that's a lesson, of course. You put investment into the intersection control evaluation, so you have a project that's ready for when a funding opportunity is presented. So to the extent that you're going to deviate from that from a material basis, they're going to view you as not being ready, and they're going to move on to the next component here. And a lot of those other intermediate kinds of things, Councilmember Eigner brought up, what are some of the kind of staffing options for helping out here, and I know Chief Peterson and the team in the police department have had numerous conversations with the district about options. Right now, the school resource time is prioritized to getting buses out of Century for the most part, and so we do have an active role in traffic control and before and after school. But each school, makes decisions about how they're going to approach that. Leela, for example, they on 11th, take a very active role in traffic control, even with the lighted pedestrian actuated, flashers that we have there. They still go out with someone, back and forth, and as a school, they make that decision. The school district has made, that assessment. At this point, they have not, made the determination that they want to put people there. Part of it is they've got, with the high school and junior high, just longer and more different windows, that they're dealing with activities and things like that. But, certainly those things can continue to be discussed and explored. I think the question here is, does this intersection need to be upgraded? Is this the right thing? And do you want to proceed with, telling MnDOT that we're in a position that we want to move forward with at least the roundabout piece and all the pedestrian overpass, underpass, supplemental types of pedestrian issues. Those can all be deferred and or discussed as you look at other funding opportunities.
Go ahead, Mike.
Are we ready for a motion?
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we move forward with the pedestrian improvement at 97 in Goodview, with the project as laid out by MnDOT, further, obviously not including the pedestrian crossing, so that can be determined at a different point.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? I want the safest, and I'm going to vote no because I just don't have confidence that this is going to benefit anybody. It's, to me, wow, they gave us some money, so we have to spend it. That's not their money. It's coming out of our pockets. It's coming out of our taxes. Yeah, it might not end up in this time, it might not end up in our community, but I don't see spending money just because somebody, has it there. So I just can't support this project. I want the best, and I don't believe this design is going to benefit either traffic or especially not the pedestrians. And we are definitely going to be on the hook for several $1 million because if this goes forward, they're going to build the bridge too. It's just going to have to be done, so. Any other discussion?
Just add though, so I appreciate the concerns on where we are today with design, but we've been having these discussions for about a year, and between the various studies that have been done and the community meetings, all of that has been kind of, I think we've gone through the right process and have had the right inputs to get to this final design, or at least this proposed design. I don't think we're quite there yet on the pedestrian aspect, which is the important part. But it's not every day that MnDOT has funding available, and because we've gone through the steps already, I'm going to advocate we do this.
And I would add that I don't want to do this just because we have the money. I want to do it because I want to slow traffic down in that area. I think that in and of itself will go a long ways towards improving safety. You're right, but this isn't perfect. But slowing the traffic down around the kids, I said that before, that works for me, and it's a stupid roundabout besides.
All right. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, I guess I'm looking at it as the other improvements that are going to happen and that Brian has been involved with on 97. I mean, this is all a part of that puzzle.
Yes.
So it seems to me that we're going to spend all this money further east on 97, but then we're not going to address this critical intersection. Doesn't seem to make much sense not to do it all. The pedestrian thing, I think, is a totally separate issue from the roundabout. I mean, the roundabout to me is cars. The bridge, tunnels, whatever you're talking about, that's people. That's kids crossing the street. So, I don't think you can get the other pieces of the puzzle, or you don't want the other pieces of the puzzle if you can't have this one. I mean, that's me.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. All right, Aaron, designation of airport mediation representative.
Mayor, members of council, as you're aware, we have mediation on the airport issue on February 13th, and so we have been working as a staff to pull together lots of information for that, and the attorney that's representing us on that has, got a good working draft of a brief for the mediator. As we discussed previously, though, we do need 2 city council representatives that are willing to attend the mediation and, basically have the ability to, make a good recommendation to the group if there are some settlement terms that are discussed. And so I just defer to you on that. It's basically 100% all-day commitment in Minneapolis on February 13th. If I remember correctly, that's a Tuesday.
All right. I guess I am willing to be one person on that. I don't know if anybody's looking to split the duties.
I volunteered for it. I'd have volunteered for it also, so.
Okay. So it's, or Ed, you had,
Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to volunteer for it because both Sam and myself were privy to a lot of things because we're in the airport commission that some of the other members here weren't privy to. And the statements that were made, I don't know that that will be beneficial or not. But if the question does arise, who said what, at least we have some of the answers.
Sure. Do we want to split the duties or just nominate Sam and Ed for it?
But is it just, I mean, is it?
We met.
Oh, otherwise we'd have a quorum of 3 of us, it might, I guess.
Right. Correct, yeah.
Right.
I guess it depends on how important it is. I felt it was important for me to be there. That was just my opinion because of this whole thing. And as far as you or Ed going too, I mean, I certainly don't have an issue with that.
No, I mean, I just think
I just thought because of you were right about it, because of the conversations that took place during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I'm fine with whoever we designate. I mean,
I think Mara is.
Or Mara, did you have?
So I was looking for clarification on role. Is there a testimony period for whoever council chooses? Or my impression is that there's not a testimony period. It's more of being there to just as decisions were coming back or as.
For the vast majority of the day, you are going to be in a room.
Staring out a window.
Just hanging out with your representative and the staff. And the mediator will be doing shuttle diplomacy, going back and forth, and basically pushing you on your arguments, and they're going to be pushing the other group on their arguments. And you know, the extent that there's some settlement offers exchanged, you can, you know, say, yeah, this is something we feel like we can bring back to the group, or no, you know.
Well, I'm fine with.
Well, I guess the question I have is, will Sam or myself or whoever we send be active in the negotiation as far as, because if that's true, I mean, certain people up here, Mike, you're one of them, is a strong negotiator. You know, maybe from that aspect, it might be better to have.
You won't be negotiating directly with, you know, you'll just be there to be able to provide information to our representative, our legal representatives.
Yeah, but if they bring a settlement offer, you will be the person to say whether that's a good idea or not a good idea. So there is some negotiation, but Aaron's right. They're primarily going to continue to push you on your what you say. So if you say we want 400,000, they're gonna say that's ridiculous, and you should be looking at 100. When they go to the other room, they say they want 100. They're going to say no, you should be up at 300. So they're going to be trying to bridge that gap in order to find a negotiated settlement. So they're while you'll be bored most of the day, when they're in there, you're going to get pushed and challenged and asked to make decisions.
Who has participated in mediations on the city's behalf in other situations we've had? Airport, or the Canopy being one?
I did that one.
You did that one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's always varied to
I
a
put my
certain
time in on it, but I'm fine with Ed and Sam doing it. That's fine with me. I just, you know, I know people's work schedule, it's kind of difficult to just take a day off to do something like this anyway, and I think it's kind of ridiculous that they're requiring 2 people there. But that's the requirements, and
you are not obligated to have 2 people there either. It's just was a working idea. So you certainly can have one representative. It's just as a council, you should feel comfortable, you know, to a certain extent, you know, empowering that person, you know, to come back. I mean, you're not obligated to improve their recommendation, but it's always a good idea.
I think Ed and Sam both have duration on Airport Commission, and certainly we're here throughout the duration of all of the conversations with the project, and I don't have any concerns with the 2 of them.
I mean,
I agree.
that was my main thing, is that I just know that we were privy to things that, because you didn't attend those meetings, you weren't. And at that time, they weren't taped, so you can't even go back and look at those.
Correct.
Agreed.
Do we have a motion on that then?
Make a motion to have Councilmember Eisner and Husnick represent us on the airport mediation.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstain?
Abstain.
Stand then if the,
You guys could vote on that, but it's all right.
Aaron, 7H, the interim administrator.
Yep, Mayor Members Council, as you're aware, I'll be moving on as of February 1st, or actually January 30th is my last day. And so with that, the Personnel Committee has been having some conversations about the designation of an interim administrator. And the recommendation to you there was to appoint Dan Undum as the interim administrator. So to that extent, you have a resolution within your packet that accomplishes that. There was a couple of other items asked for during that, including the current position description, which is included in your packet, the previous recruitment information, which was also included in your packet back from that 2010 timeframe, and some guidance from the League of Minnesota Cities on the process you go through and some of the different things to think about when you're recruiting a city administrator. The Personnel Committee also talked about, kind of broke the discussion up into two steps. One was the designation of an interim come February or January 31st. And then the other component of the discussion is the process for naming a permanent person to the position. And so that is something that the group, I think, when they met as a Personnel Committee, thought it'd be best if the council spent some time at a workshop on. And so you'd be asked to set a date for that this evening as well. Committee also asked for a salary survey, which I think we're nearly complete on. We just have two cities we're waiting to hear back from there. And so generally speaking, we're pretty far along. And then also wanted to create a framework for getting feedback, both for the council and the staff on things that they think are important for the position going forward and feedback. And I know Dan has worked on a Survey Monkey, I think, that can be distributed to those different stakeholders and kind of assimilated to provide feedback. And so at the workshop, you can discuss the questions there and or maybe even over email. I guess we can talk about getting council feedback on that. So moving to the resolution, I do believe Dan would do an excellent job as the interim. So from that perspective, you do have Resolution 0108-1804 in front of you that does name him as the interim, and basically from a compensation perspective puts him at the first hiring step in the city administrator salary schedule. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have or defer to your conversation.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Well, started off, Dan, I got full confidence that, you'll be able to step in and it'll be a smooth transition. I support the resolution, I guess, as it stands, but I'd like to hear from...
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Aaron, for an outstanding job that you've done. For those of you who don't know, I was on when he was selected, and he was not my first choice, as we've kind of joked about over the years, and I've been proven absolutely positively wrong. He's done a great job as city administrator, so I'd like to start there and wish you very well in Rochester.
Thank you.
I'm fine with the resolution as presented.
So I'll echo Councilmember Freer's comments on disappointed we're in this position, and would like to thank Aaron for his hard work and everything he's done for Forest Lake. You leave big shoes to fill. I do want to make sure that we've got Dan set up for success. We've had some conversation about potential of who else do we need to lean on in this interim position, recognizing you are filling essentially two jobs. And so I think that through some additional requests that may be asked of either department heads or our city attorney, city engineering, I think we're going to have to kind of just make sure we've got all bases covered during this interim period and make sure, again, Dan's set up for success. But with that, I will also support the resolution tonight.
I also would like to echo the comments that I think, Aaron, you've done an excellent job. I'm going to be frank and say I'm going to miss you from the standpoint of you manage the city very well, and wish you anything but good luck in your new position. I'm sure that Rochester's gain is going to be our loss, so best of luck to you.
Thank you.
I also want to say good luck, Aaron. And thanks for the time you spent here in Forest Lake. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve Resolution 0108-1804.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion? I just have a point of clarification with this resolution. Once a permanent administrator is hired, do you need to rescind this, or we don't need any action to?
So Mayor, members, council, when you appoint a permanent administrator, you'll likely do it by resolution, and I think whatever adjustments you're going to make at that time would likely be reflected in the resolution. We don't always do these actions by resolution. A lot of times we do things by motion. In this particular case, since this position serves as the statutory city clerk, you are kind of obligated to adopt it by resolution. So I think any adjustments would happen at the time of a permanent appointment being made.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, Your Honor, thank you for that. And again, you're in very good hands. Dan is doing an exceptional job, and I'll absolutely do my very best to position him well for a good transition. And you've got a great team of staff here, and so you're going to be well served, and the community will be well served here. The second component of the discussion is, having that conversation about the recruitment process. Likewise, though, just parallel to that, we've got a little bit of an anomaly for our workshop in January. So typically, of course, it would be the 15th. The 15th is Martin Luther King Day this month. We do have a fairly robust workshop agenda, minus that discussion. And so I can go through some of the items that are on there, but we are queued up for a number of them. In the calendar originally, we had scheduled the workshop for January 29th, given that it was kind of that fifth Monday of the month, which is typically open for us. But I guess the question, at least as far as the council is concerned, as far as the regular workshop goes, would it be worthwhile to have that on the 16th? If that works for everybody. Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission meets at 6, but they certainly could, it sounds like, meet at 6 and be done by 7, and then the chambers would be available for the meeting at that point in time. So at a minimum, we could have the regular workshop that night with all the items that we have for that. On the 16th, we could put the interim discussion at the end. If there's time for it, we could maybe have it, and if not, maybe we find a different night, or I guess, defer to the council on whether they want to have a standalone conversation or time on that. So,
thank you, Aaron.
I've seen the preview of the agenda for the 16th, and it is a packed schedule with lots of important topics. I think this is big enough; it deserves its own evening if we are able to find the calendar time for it. So I would advocate for having that workshop to discuss replacement strategy or recruitment strategy on January 29th.
What date?
January 29th was the date.
For the recruitment strategy.
For the recruitment strategy.
Yeah.
I would like to see it.
I think Ryan had that question, so.
I just want to let you know I have told a number of property owners along 11th Avenue Southeast that we would be presenting the striping changes at the workshop on the 29th. I certainly can contact who I can, but I have told that to a number of people already. But we could do 2 items maybe on the 29th.
Yeah, sorry about that, Ryan. I did forget about that. So maybe that 29th could be a 2-item agenda conceivably. And
Otherwise, the 16th, is that what we're agreeing on for the workshop then?
for the regular workshop, if that works for people.
I would still like to see, at least put the discussion on the agenda. If we burn through the workshop quick, we can at least begin and, you know.
Never shy away from the late night.
I agree.
That's true. Works for me.
I'm okay having it on there.
If we finish it, we finish it. If we
I
don't, we
just
finish it on the 29th.
Don't want to have that conversation on fumes. I think it deserves.
I guess my train of thought is, we could at least begin advertising.
Yeah.
Recruiting a little bit. You know, otherwise we're missing 2 weeks of opportunity there.
Okay.
All right. So Dave, streetlights.
Mayor and council, we were here about a year ago to adopt a way to handle requests for residents who wish to have additional streetlights placed throughout the city. Since then, we've had multiple requests for the forms, but this is the first one that actually has come through. So here tonight, we have a request from the property owner of the Balloon Shop on 7th Avenue Southwest. I have attached the actual request form to the agenda. Request cites the customers that comment that there is dark at night, and also that across the street, the Music Connection and the Rifle Range would like to lighten up their back doors. The area here, if you can see on Figure 1, the areas that are requested are the 2 areas circled in red on the 2 power poles. Currently, that intersection of that road has a light on Highway 61 at the intersection. You can kind of see that one that hangs over the Highway 61 there, and there's also one on Centennial Avenue on the west side of the intersection across from the crosswalk there. According to the city's streetlight policy, the purpose of a streetlight is to improve the safety of vehicular and pedestrian traffic along public ways. While these requests would improve both, Public Works believes that the requested lights are not necessary as there are lights at the intersections already. As you can see in Figure 2, it's consistent with the blocks north and south where there's no mid-block lighting along that area. The feeling of Public Works is that this lighting is more security lighting and would be more the responsibility of the property owner. It's more that the parking lots want to be lit up versus the actual streets. While there is cars parked there, it's not uncommon for many of our city streets to be dark, mid-block. With that said, if the council would wish to install the streetlights there, being that they would be mounted to a power pole, there is no upfront cost of mounting the light and installing the light, but there would be a long-term cost of $9.59 per month, or about $114 annually per light. So Public Works' recommendation would be deny the streetlight request. I would entertain any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Dave. Council, have any questions?
It's not very often I'm shocked that something is inexpensive, and in this case I am. It's not very expensive. But I'm concerned we put them here and we're going to put them mid-block on every block in the community. That's my concern.
Yeah, I don't see them, I'm used to seeing streetlights at intersections.
Right.
And I don't see where this is really going to benefit traffic.
Are there sidewalk facilities on 7th Street?
There really isn't any.
There is not, right? This isn't a pedestrian move?
No, it's just curving.
Yeah, it's, okay.
Look for a motion or?
I was just gonna I was going to echo Dave's comments that this, to me, looks like it's more security lighting than it is anything else. And if they're asking for it and we approve it, then we're going to have a whole lot more that are going to ask for the same.
Right.
So I'd be not in favor of this.
All right. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we deny the request for street lights placed on, what is it, in the parking lot on 7th Avenue,
I'll second.
based on them being security lights, not really enhancing the public use.
Yeah, if they want to put them up privately, that's
correct.
Fine, so.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion, or lights denied anyway. And now we are going on to K. Bailey.
Mayor and members of the council, we received 2 bids from both the Forest Lake Times and the Pioneer Press to be designated as the official newspaper of the city of Forest Lake. And based on statutory requirements for designation, staff recommends that the Forest Lake Times be designated the city's official newspaper for 2018, based on good standing with them, great costs, and they've also moved the deadlines quite a bit for us when needed.
Thank you, Bailey. Ed?
I guess my recommendation at this time would be I'd rather go with the Pioneer Press, seeing as the Times is no longer distributed to, right now it's for purchase only. The Pioneer Press is probably in more homes out here than the Times.
Go ahead.
I've been on and off on whether I would vote for the paper, being the Forest Lake Times, based on their inconsistency in reporting and frankly flat out lies about me personally a couple of different times. Ryan's done a very good job of changing that culture, so thank you, Ryan. But I'm never going to vote for the Politburo Press to be our official newspaper. You want to talk about getting away from community. This is getting more to big state, big government, bureaucracy, and Politburo Press, Pioneer Press is about as far away from what we should be doing in our community as I can possibly think of, other than maybe the Red Star Tribune. So we'll stick with the Forest Lake Times in my mind.
And I do believe, due to state statute and yes, the Times having an office here, that
Do we have circulation numbers for both of what the circulation is for Pioneer Press versus current circulation numbers for the Times?
I attached both the letters to the packet, and it looks like the Pioneer Press only included their circulation numbers for a Sunday full run of being about 200,000. They didn't include any other day. And then as far as the Forest Lake Times, I don't see that they've included their full circulation.
Do we have Pioneer Press Forest Lake circulation, or do they only give a full circulation number?
I think Ryan will give you an answer. He's had his hand up.
Oh, yeah. If you want to know it, for us, I can speak to that a little bit. I haven't gotten numbers updated for about a month, so we don't handle circulation out of our office, but we have, I think about 17, last time I heard, 16 to 1,700. Plus, we've had a lot of people buying paper, like spot buying it, either from our office or from the newsstands too. In December, mid-December, we had about 1,700 subscriptions.
One more clarifying question. I know a lot of the content of the Times is now behind a pay site, but did I see as part of the proposal that the city meeting notification section is on a public-facing side that is free of charge? Is that correct?
It currently is, and it would stay free. We also try to have like important stuff like breaking public safety things like that. We make those free as well. But yeah, the public notices are always and will always be free for anyone to look at.
Okay, thank you.
look for a motion, or?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Forest Lake Times as our official city newspaper.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, the only thing I will add to that is the fact that the city business will still be free to residents. Will change my mind.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, all those?
One other point, one other thing I appreciate is swaying my decision against an alternative is that the Times has made the motion or has gone through the effort of changing their deadlines. And there are times where that the expediency of notification helps us. So I appreciate that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And Dave, we got a motor grader to buy.
We do. Mayor and council, the 2018 budget included funding for the purchase of a new motor grader for Public Works. Our current grader is a 2005, which is 13 years old and has approximately 7,000 hours on it. The current equipment replacement policy is 15 years or 5,000 hours, so has exceeded the hours and nearing the years of service. We received a demo unit both from Caterpillar and John Deere to try it out. We had both for approximately 2 weeks to run out on the gravel roads. After they operated, the staff basically decided that the Caterpillar 12M3 would be the best fit. One of the reasons is just the operation. Caterpillar has switched most of their controls to everything's on joysticks. So you go in there's no such thing as a steering wheel anymore. Everything is run on joysticks, and it matches our current skid steer on loaders. So the controls for operators to go from one piece of equipment to the other is relatively the same. I mean, you go from a loader to a skid steer to the grader now, that it's all the same. Whereas the John Deere is easier than the old school deer antlers, as they call them, but it's still it's completely different than, the Caterpillar controls. Also, customer support, the main shop is right in Columbus. You can drive the grader right over there for service if we have any issues. RDO is in Burnsville, it's a ways away. And cost, John Deere was, a little underneath what Caterpillar is, but, we are under budget for what we were allotted, and we are getting a very good piece of equipment for that price. Once again, the grader it's competitively bid already through the state contract, so purchasing through Ziegler, it's already been bid out, so that price is as low as you can get with that. We also got $54,500 for our current grader as a trade-in, and that brings our final price to $259,735. The grader takes about 20 weeks to put together after they receive a purchase agreement, so if approved tonight, we'd see it about in June. With that, I would open up to any questions.
Yeah, Dave, other than age and hours, what issues do you have with the current grader?
Transmission is 13 years old. We went through one at about year 5.5 to 6, so that would tell you that that's probably getting close to going, and that's a $30,000 to $40,000 fix. The wiring harness in there, same deal, that you're running on borrowed time with that. I mean, you're one issue away from burning $50,000 and something that's worth $50,000.
Well, I had the opportunity to speak with Dave earlier, ask some questions about this, because it is, a significant investment, but definitely following within our guidelines of pay-as-you-go. I'm confident that the choice he's making here is good, is probably the best. As we move forward, I think we need to really look at a replacement policy on this piece of equipment, trading it in quicker. is gonna really maximize our dollars in a machine. But we can do that by modifying our capital improvement plan. So
I did come up with some information. I don't know if Bailey had handed that out to you. Yep. So that is one of the, I guess you could say, the perk of Ziegler. They offer a guaranteed buyback. So at a 5-year, the minimum that they'll give you, they'll guarantee you that they'll give you $150,000 for the piece of equipment at 5 years. Now that's saying that if we, at 5 years, you have 2,000 hours on it instead of 3,500, which their parameters are, you'll be guaranteed to get more than that. It also opens you up to selling it to XYZ contractor around here saying, well, Ziegler Caterpillar will give me 150,000, will you give me 160 for it? I mean, you're not tied to selling it to them back, but you're also able to know that in 5 years they will give you that amount of money for it, which if the price of a grader goes up, say $5,000 to $6,000 over these 5-year period, you know, your next grader will cost $110,000. I mean, you won't, if you can stay on that 5-year program, you're not going to have to drop a $300,000 bill on your pay-as-you-go. It's going to be a lot more attainable.
Are there any other things this grader can do? I mean, that grader's still basically the same other than joysticks?
No, as you can see on the list, it's going to come with the snow fighter package. I know we discussed on the last plow truck that we don't want to, or the last position hiring, that doesn't mean we're going to have to increase equipment or buy another plow truck. Well, the overall plan is if you increase positions, the grader will become a plow route, that they'll do the gravel roads. It'll be equipped with the wing, and we already have the wing and the plow. It just has the fee to get it installed on the new one. You have to switch the mounts, but so it'll, in time it will be a year-round. It'll grade in the summer, and then in the winters it'll have a plow route. So it'll become more of a universal. Right now we don't have enough operators to use it. We use the plow trucks and all that, which are faster, but when we have more employees, that'll definitely, add into the rotation, which will get more miles plowed faster.
Can do anything else?
look in the parade.
Yeah, traffic control. You can park it for the parade. I mean, really, you can get rippers, and you can get top con on it and do a bunch, but we're not bridge builders or road builders. It's
Not in that business.
And that's why we selected the 12M3. We had a 143, which is a very big grader, and we don't need that size of a grader. We need it more streamlined. It still has, you're only losing 15 to 20 horsepower, but you're losing some weight, so you're a little bit lighter going down the gravel roads, but you're not sacrificing that much power. So I think the one we had was a little overkill for what we do. So I think this fits more in municipalities. City of Hugo has a 12M3, and they kind of do the same basic stuff we do, and in talking with them, that they're really happy with the grader they have. So
It's a necessary piece of equipment we have to run the city. I think. You're not going to use it every day, all year long, but it's a machine we got to have. Look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the grader as presented in package.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
thank you.
And Aaron, can we get on capital improvement discussion to change that motor grader to a 5-year?
Yeah, Mayor, members, council, maybe kind of part and parcel, you'll actually be considering the adoption of the 5-year CIP probably in February or April. And so part and parcel with that, you can take a look at all the equipment replacement guidelines and evaluate those. So.
All right, thank you. All right, we're getting there. 2018 committee appointments, liaison appointments. I sent messages out, got feedback from all the council members that, we're all happy with the liaisonships and that we're on. So I'm going to keep those as is. I got 3 appointments to announce tonight. So we're reappointing Eric Lagos to the Planning Commission, Doug Ramseth to the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Commission, and then Sam, as we had the discussion, and you're on the Airport Commission, but also as a council member. So I am going to appoint somebody else to that seat, unfortunately. So, but I'd like to announce Doug Steeler is going to be a new Airport Commission member. And he's also a resident along Clear Lake. So he's a pilot, hoping to get a hangar up at the airport, but also is a member of a resident along Clear Lake. I think he's going to bring a little bit, be able to bridge those two and work along that. I'm hoping that we're going to have a discussion coming up, not at the next workshop, but soon, as to giving the Airport Commission some guidance, possibly redirecting that commission instead of just a focus on the airport, to be able to look more possibly at our roads or maybe the properties around there. But I think we need to talk to the members there and look at giving them a little bit broader stroke of responsibility, so that there isn't just that one tiny focus there. I think we've got some really good members on there, and be able to challenge them to, help the city out in some other responsibilities as well.
Does that mean, are you going to rotate the chairmanship like we've always done every couple of years?
That would be up to I don't know the specific bylaws of that Airport Commission.
We've always done that. I did try to get that done at the last meeting, but for whatever reason, couldn't make it happen.
I think typically they do that, or they were saying that is done in February.
Mayor's Council, there's historical practices, and, different groups have those. The rules of procedure basically require, a designation of the chair annually. So, that's something that each committee should probably have on their agenda.
But that's done by each committee. That's
been our historical way of doing it. It's always has, and I want to see that happen. And I will stay active. I'm not going to go away. Mr. Dahlbeck had brought up some concerns tonight about the Airport Commission, and he's one of the reasons. And he built a hangar out there. He immediately moved on.
This is not the time to discuss.
I don't care, but it is the time to discuss why there's an issue. And so
this is not the time or the place to discuss that.
I'm not going to go away.
No, I understand that, and I appreciate you.
Nobody's fought harder for this city or the airport than I have. Nobody.
Yep, it's just, this is not the time or place to discuss that. We can put it on an agenda if you want, but let's move on. So look for a motion for sideboard invoices.
No, we have to vote on the appointments.
On the appointments.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the appointments as presented, Mr. Mayor.
Got a motion, do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I would be open to a conversation, or I think it's worth, at risk of adding yet another workshop topic to the agenda long list. I can foresee challenges at the committee level of choosing a chair, and I wonder if that is either a mayor, done through either mayor or council action. It's an important role, and there are times when that isn't always mediated well at the individual committee level. Might be worth some discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I actually agree with Councilmember Bain. I think the Airport Commission has unfortunately dissolved into a commission that is having very difficult time making decisions, and as a result, I would actually recommend that the council make the decision on who the chair is this next round.
I would also say it happens now, it's the airport commission. There's been times where it's another commission. And
Absolutely,
there's times where situations just perhaps warrant for different action, so.
As a member of that commission, I kind of disagree with what you're saying. I think we should have the opportunity to determine our own chair. If we can't come to an agreement, obviously, then it would be an appointment by someone else, but.
I wasn't at the last airport commission meeting, but even I've heard about what happened at the end of that thing. It dissolved into yelling and screaming again. This is not the first time,
But there's enough people on that commission to be able to appoint a chair and come up with a vote.
So Mayor's Council, as you know, all these things have different rules, and, you know, our overall guideline is each commission shall appoint a chair, and I think a vice chair or something along those lines. In the case of the airport commission, maybe there's potentially even code language that, you know, indicates they appoint a chair, and so I think you're gonna have that discussion. Those changes have to be made prior to, you know, the council, you know, making that decision. So certainly can be a topic of a workshop on whether you want to do that universally. You do have the rules of procedure on the next workshop to talk about any particular requirements for video conferencing or remote meeting attendance. So you could integrate that conversation there as well, or have it at a, you know, future discussion time too. So.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Do we have a second? Okay. Any further discussion?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, just for the record, one of the statutory appointments the city attorney was mentioning to me is just to reflect that Councilmember Fear is the acting or deputy mayor. Just for, that's one that's got to, you have to make sure is acknowledged, I think, and so.
All right, so I will appoint Councilmember Freer as deputy mayor. And I guess then we'll have to look for.
Do we have to modify? I'll modify my motion, adding myself as deputy mayor.
Yeah, I think when I mentioned it, I just wanted to make note of that fact because, you know, that was the appointment last year and you were voting on carrying over previous appointments, but just to make sure we're 100% on it. So.
Okay.
All right. Are you okay with that for a second?
I have ongoing residency concerns.
Go figure.
That are still unresolved, in my opinion, and so I withdraw my second.
Okay, so we do have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Oh.
All right, and abstain.
I don't need to abstain. I already voted.
Oh, you did vote? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so it
voted yes.
carries 3-2. All right, Ace Hardware invoices.
I make a motion, we approve the Ace Hardware invoices.
Do you have a second on that?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Oh, that's not, just, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Abstain.
And the Winnick Supply invoices.
Make a motion, we approve the Winnick Supply invoices.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
One abstain. All right. Given the time, do we want to skip? If there's anything relevant or pertinent, say it now or hold your tongue till next meeting. Yeah. How's that go? I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.